Namaskaram. Good morning to one and all. We commence Smriti Lahari, Waves of Memories, a session to speak, share, and interact on the art, life, and legacy of Natya Vidushi, Srimati T. Balasaraswati, at the celebration of the commencement of her centenary year. Srimati Nandini Ramani will now welcome the eminent guests and participants of this event. I kindly request our eminent guests, Dr. Malati Rangaswamy, Padma Shri Professor Sudharani Raghupati, Dr. Saskia Kessenboom, Dr. Madhavi, Dr. Ashish Mohan Kokar, Srimati Charumati Ramachandran, to please come over to the dais. As they ascend the dais, I request them to offer floral tributes to the portrait of Srimati T. Balasaraswati. Srimati Sushma Ranganathan will assist them in paying the floral tributes. I also welcome Dr. Gauri Ramnarayan. Srimati Premvada Shankar will also pay her floral tributes to Srimati T. Balasaraswati's portrait.
Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Good morning and Namaskaram. On behalf of our trustee, Shri R. Kalidas, who is here with us, and our patron, Srimati Premvada Shankar, who is the first disciple of Sangeeta Kalanidhi T. Balasaraswati, our Guru, and all those team members who are associated with me in the two-day event of the Bala 100 Centenary year beginning function. I welcome heartily one and all of you Rasikas assembled here for this morning session of Smriti Lahari. My hearty pranams to all the eminent gurus, Natyacharyas, Natya exponents, musicians, media, friends and well-wishers who are assembled here. Today morning I'm a bit relaxed because there is no formatted welcome speech. Yesterday it was a little kind of officiating many things. Smriti Lahari actually brings back golden memories of both Premvada and myself of our venerated Guru Srimati T. Balasaraswati, with whom we have spent, myself at least till the last of the last days of Bala, and Premvada up to 1968. It's a long journey. There are so many beautiful memories and experiences, both as she as a guru and we as the sincere disciples, who dare not speak anything in front of her. That's how our life was. Shumma iru. That was the code. We can never ask anything. And she was a Mauna Guru. Everything was explained with minimal words. Rest of it with one raise of a brow or a one hard look. Quiet. You remain quiet. That is the actual essence of Gurutvam and Shishyatvam, which I think the Gen next should understand. These are the underlying thoughts that came to me because I am not going to, my brother Ashish told me, Akka, you should be talking more. No, I have talked enough about Bala. I have written about Bala. I have conveyed her thoughts and practices through media and on platforms at different types of functions. Because Bala was the driving force for both our lives. We had a personal life, but in all that, Bala was there. So this is a very emotion-packed session for us. Also to my brother, who was a pillar of support. They have seen us grow with Bala, and they have all been part of Bala's artistic life. If there is a Bala concert, all of us have to be attending to something or other around that at the Music Academy. We have to carry flowers. He has to go to the town to get flowers for Bala. My mother has to tie it. We have to go and deliver it at the green room. That kind of wholesome living with her art. I think that made a different approach for us to look at her as an artist and as a person. Today we are here to hear to many of the elevating speeches and PowerPoint presentations from some of our very close friends. Each one of them is very special to us. For Kalidas, Premvada, myself, and also my brother Charudattan in the US. All of us know them personally so well. Although we were connected in the cultural scene, there was something more than that. When we grew up, we all grew up together. I heartily welcome today's eminent guests and the eminent speakers who are here. Some of them have come from abroad just for this. I'm really indebted to them for their time and affection for our center, with which they have spared their time and energy to come here and participate in this Smriti Lahari occasion. I first welcome Dr. Malati Rangaswamy, one of the senior most disciples of Srimati T. Jayammal, Bala's own mother, who was a fantastic, great musician, very sensitive, in fact, very aesthetic. She was the one who decided that Bala will not dance for the temples, and the stage has to see this art in a bigger manifestation. And she, with much opposition from her own family, she put Bala for the performance stage. Malati Mami, daughter-in-law of the illustrious T.T. Krishnamachari, former finance minister, a close admirer, friend, mentor for my father, Dr. Raghavan. He was there in all our weddings. Anything he would call Raghava, and father would approach him. And at the Music Academy, they were working in such great unison of mind and action. His daughter-in-law, her mother and father, they are also great art patrons who are well known to Dr. Raghavan. Most importantly, Dr. Malati may remember that whenever before Bala starting the class, there will be in a small thatched hut in the academy's campus, Jayammal's Padam session was held there. My father saw to it in so many ways to help Bala's family, which was going through a lot of difficulties in those times. I remember, I think those days Jayamma was paid 100 rupees, if I'm right, Premvada should tell me. I remember father telling that. because that 100 rupees was very necessary for Bala to feed 10 or 15 men in the house. One lady earning for all the men. Just imagine, it may be a funny thing for Gen X to listen, but it's a very, very emotional, deep pain that she has to constantly strive to uphold her art and then take care of this side of the family's affairs. We are all provided with so much facilities these days, with so much of limited resources, funding, and any technical facility. Both Bala and Dr. Raghavan, they created wonders. They made history. Malati Mami, a fine musician, having learnt scores of padams and javalis from Jayamal, was very dear to her. Probably, if there was much inducement, she would have become a very good dance musician. In those days, such things were not, kind of put in use. And Malati Mami has seen both Premvada and me as very young girls. Especially me, she has seen as a very, very young child. Those days she drove a car, she had a long hair, and then she drove a car to come to the Padam class. Why I remember all this is, for Jayamal, I used to be pounding Vetlapak every session. She will always go and sit. Before Balama's class, we would arrive there. Premvada will be very sincerely practicing with Ganeshan. With pajama and a thing, I will go and stand in Jayama's room, and she would say, "Hey, Ramaka, ukkar, Vetlapak ididi." I used to sit because, and the paaka was special. Adu konja kudupa enakku. So I used to sit there and I watched Mami there. There are many Mamis of those times. People may not even know them. They were all part of that history. Some of them are, still alive. And my strong impression of Mami singing very dedicatedly in the Jayamal's class. Mami has been part of our growing life. She secured a PhD in writing about the Music Academy, contribution of Music Academy. Her doctorate was on that. A former vice president of Music Academy also. And a fantastic human being, generous, kind, compassionate always. Mami, my namaskarams to you. I welcome you heartily on behalf of Kalidas, Premvada, and myself. Our next important guest, Professor Sudharani Raghupati, Padma Shri awardee. What can I say about my own family member? It's like talking about my sister Premvada. They were the two illustrious students of two great doyens. The great Ishepperarniyar, K.P. Kittappa Pillai of Tanjavur Quartet. Think of that doyen, you will get punyam. I have moved with him in his last days very deeply with him that I became so attached to him. He used to await my arrival every time in Tanjavur when we were doing a book together containing 15 rare repertoire of the Tanjavur Quartet, which the Music Academy brought out when I was there as a secretary. Sudhama is his prime disciple, pet disciple. Many times in our discussion, her name used to come. He used to say, Ketappa, and I used to say, if you want to see all my items, go to Sudha, my very good student. I have personally talked to him about that and heard him saying that. And to Bala, Sudhama was very dear. I still recall Premvada had gone to Canada. Ani was born some 12 years after Siddhartha, I think. After the class, she said, "Hey, ella vaanga. Papa porandirukku namma poi paakradhukku ponom." Probably 40 days or 50 days old, Ani, I remember. We all went from the dance class, music academy to that Leicester Road house. And Bala was teasing her of the long gap between the two children. I still remember the conversation. So much affection Bala had for her. And she was very encouraging of her starting the school. And my father was the person to preside over the first anniversary of Sri Bharatalaya. We all know about the great achievements of Sudhamma. Some of her brilliant students are very well-known established dancers today. Her contribution to the Bharatanatyam scene in the traditional way is something phenomenal. My hearty welcome to Sudhamma. Several times she has come to our center, but this is very special because it is from a Bharatanatyam exponent to a Bharatanatyam legend, an offering of homage. A hearty welcome to Sudhamma. One of our guests of honor, again I'll become very emotional when I speak of her. My very dear Saskia, 45 years of friendship. Through learning Bharatanatyam as a student, and then becoming part of the family, almost like one of the children of Dr. Raghavan. And then she manifested into a great scholar, but never lost touch of the friendship and the Shishyatva to a guru. I may not be referring myself as guru. As Premvada said, even Bala never wanted that name to be attached as guru. One has to earn that title to become a guru and to be called as guru. But Saskia was a fantastic Shishya. We have had beautiful moments of sharing the heritage of Tanjavur Bharatanatyam in Bala and Kandappa style and Ganeshan's methodology. And as a true disciple, she was always very keen to promote the activities, especially of Bharatanatyam activities of the Dr. V. Raghavan Center for Performing Arts in any part of the country where she taught or lived. And in the Netherlands, when Bharatanatyam was not that much known, she used to have a twofold presentation. One is Dasiyatam and then the Bharatanatyam performance. We both shared the stage. We had fantastic lectures, centers like the Music Centrum Utrecht, which is one of the renowned organizations. Saskia is also a very good art administrator and connector to events. So that way we have worked at different levels, not only as teacher and taught, now more as very matured friends. Her being here, when you mention the name of the book, Nitya Sumangali, the whole world will salute this woman. The very first work describing the Devadasi tradition of South India. My very dear Saskia, a warm welcome to you and many hugs. And thanks for being here. Actually, she conducts a tour of Saptavetangasthala in the past several years as founder director of a foundation called Paramparai Foundation. Many of you might have seen in the websites about her work and contribution. She is on her way back home. I requested her and she has postponed her trip and stayed for this event. And she has had the opportunity to meet Bala once, about which I think she will herself will say. A hearty welcome to Dr. Saskia Kersenboom. Dr. Madhavi, our other guest of honor. She is the head of the Department of Music and Dance in Tanjavur Tamil Palkalekazham, Tamil University. I have met her only, I've heard about her, met her about a year ago in a Arangetram function, and we caught up like fire, like immediately. There was so much mutual affinity. I said, I have heard about you, and what is Tanjavur doing for Balasaraswati Sampradaya? She said, Madam, now we will do. We are doing, but this is important. Immediately she announced a workshop commemorating the centenary year of T. Balasaraswati, Tanjavur Balasaraswati in Tanjavur Palkalekazhagam, even as early as October 31st. And there were some 60, 70 students attending it, learning two padams, and we had a talk, a Vice Chancellor had come, and it was a beautiful function, all Madhavi's efforts. That apart, Madhavi has a great lineage. Her father, Tanjavur Rajendran, a famous Nattuvanar, who's not known much outside, but a brilliant choreographer. You know, just like our K. Ganeshan, who just lived in Bala's shadow, there are so many geniuses that Tanjavur produced. One is Mr. Rajendran. Although he's no more, his choreographies, his works are still flowing among the artistic branches. Her mother, whom I met, Ratnambal, I think hails from the Veena Bhashini tradition. I've heard Bala mention that name, Veena Bhashini. One day, we were discussing about all these Marabu Kalainyas. Those days, let me tell you at this point of time, there was not talk of this Devadasi system, their culture, their art tradition. Too much talk is going on now. In those days, only tradition was being carried. And there is no nuance to looking between the layers of this Devadasi thing. So many stalwarts have worked in that. And today it's practiced that everybody uses that word in all kinds of... Anyway, this is not a forum for politics or issues. But Bala said, Veena Bhashini, enna enga kudumbathilala eppadi per veppanga theriyuma? Veena Bhashini di அந்த மாதிரி தான் நினைக்கிறேன். ஷீ மென்ஷன்ட் வெத்தலை போட்டு இப்படி காமிப்பா பாலா, தாம்பூல் அப்படி முழுங்கினா இங்கே ஷேப்பு தெரியும், என்ன அந்த மாதிரி அழகி தெரியுமா அப்படின்னா என்ன டீச்சர்னா, அவ்வளோ ஷேப்புங்கிற இந்த இடத்துல அப்படி இறங்குறதே தெரியும் வெத்தலை. அப்பேற்பட்ட கலைஞர்கள்லாம் இருந்திருக்கா தெரியுமா எங்களுதில், எங்கள் பரம்பரை என்ன. சில நாளைக்கு திடம்னு ஷி யூஸ் டு பி வெரி எமோஷனல் இன் டாக்கிங் அபவுட் ஹர் ancestors. So I remembered when she said, so here I was meeting that Ratnambai, very casual, jovial. The moment I started talking to her, immediately she recited a jati, almost danced it. She must be 72 or something, jubilant. Next day she came and joined the master class, watching me teach. It was a very nice, warm moment, Dr. Madhavi. And Madhavi is doing yeoman service. Her department is music, but there are so many dancers who are helped by her, who are working under her. Even some of our team members like Srilata, Padma Lakshmi, they are all working with her for their PhDs. She's a fantastic guide and doing a lot of good work for Bharatanatyam. Dr. Madhavi, a hearty welcome to you and namaskaram. Our first speaker today, what can I say, my childhood friend, Dr. Gauri Ramanarayanan, the illustrious granddaughter of the illustrious Kalki. Of course, illustrious mother Anandi Ramachandran, a famous dancer of her times and fantastic writer. She was the one who captured the last days of Bala in Shruti magazine. That was the last interview appeared just a week before Bala's passing away on February 9th. Gauri and I have been playmates in Kalki Gardens. Maybe we were six and a half, 7 years old. The full time we had enjoyment was Radha and Vijaya's marriage. We were playing like mad. I still remember from those days, and we have always maintained that hearty friendship and my admiration for her, although we don't every day phone and say, you did that very well, I like, we never do those things, but in the heart of hearts, Gauri has a very special place. And above all, Dr. Raghavan had a very special affection for Gauri. As a teenager, he used to be very fond of her. Whenever we went to Kalki Gardens, Gauri would be there. Her work and achievements in a multifaceted streams of cultural subjects. Many of you know, and there will be another introduction which will give an account of that. My part is to give her a warm welcome and hug. Thank you, Gauri, for being here. You are always a great moral support for me. I welcome you on behalf of Kalidas and Prempada also. Our next speaker, the eminent Vidushi. If anybody wants to think of MLV, close your eyes and listen to Charu. Vidushi Srimati Charumati Ramachandran, wife of Sangeeta Kalanidhi, Trichur V. Ramachandran, a very dear friend for many years. And of late we have been interacting and sharing thoughts on various subjects of demonstration in music and dance and related areas. Her participation is very special for me. Many of you here, younger people, may not know, whenever she sang with MLV, the great MLV, whom I adore, among the Trinity, she's the most creative singer. She used to look this side and allow Charu to, first legend to allow student to sing was MLV Amma, the most generous musician. And Charumati stood up to that expectation. We have had fantastic music sessions with Charu singing there. People who attend Music Academy cannot forget that. She was her prime student, pet student. And I remember MLV saying once, my own guru, Professor B. Krishnamurthy, who was very close to MLV and sometimes set Pallavis for MLV. MLV, I used to say, Academy lo Pallavi pannanom Krishnamurthy sir. Na Charu anuppren. Avadam. Charu will go, and Vadyar has said, Ma karpuram ma அப்படிம்பார். அவர் என்னென்னமோ ட்ரிக்காக பண்ணியிருந்தா கூட அப்படி கற்றுன்னு வந்துடுவோம். அந்த மாதிரி ஒரு மேதாவி, very dear friend. Thank you, Charu, for being here. I welcome you heartily on behalf of Sri Kalidas and Prempada and myself. Dr. Avanti Meduri, I've known her for decades, but our interactions have been limited. But the mutual affection and respect has been very great. I met her only in 1 or 2 seminars. Her academic achievements are so many to elaborate here. She's also a pioneer in studies on Devadasi systems. She published several works, and a very respected scholar, and presently with the Roehampton University as reader of the dance studies. She has been very vocal in expressing many of her thoughts about Bala and her contribution in the global scene. In fact, she is the one who gave me this idea, include this topic, it will be interesting. I'm very happy that she has just come for this, and this morning, all the way from London, arriving early and then straight driving from the airport here. I'm really grateful, Avanti, for this wonderful gesture. I thank you and I heartily welcome you. Very glad that you are participant in this memorable event of Smriti Lahari. A warm welcome on behalf of Sri Kalidas and Prempada also. Shri Ashish Kokar. I call him Tambi because we have been interacting in the cultural scene for many years now. There is always some queries from him all the time, and we share with sometimes fondness, affection, and sometimes some pulling here and there. And then finally we settle down. That is Akka Tambi relationship. I like him because he's just like me, struggling to maintain a great father's work, which is not easy. I know what all he's undergoing: funding, people's attitudes, governmental indifference, one's own assets to protect the archives. I know how I'm struggling with Dr. Raghavan's enormous material. Thanks to my brother R. Kalidas, he has funded all the publications of Dr. Raghavan from 1981 to 2008. All his personal earnings, not corporate money. He didn't bring money from outside, his own money. Because Dr. Raghavan was such a scholar, came from a very, very ordinary, humble background, made all by himself, no support, but made it to the topmost. So for such a father, Atma vai putra namasi, he saw himself in him. Why I am saying this is, such a son is Ashish. It is not easy. It may be just easy for me to say some few words about him and then, but the actual process of continuing this work, the monumental Mohan Kokar archives, our families were very close. I still remember when I went to perform in Delhi with the father was accompanying me. He came from Varanasi. Saroja Amma, the illustrious dancer from the Kattumannar Kovil Sampradayam, his mother, who's still alive with us happily, 93-year-old, she came rushing to see us at Bharat Bhavan and did pranams to father. I remember that. They were great friends of father. They had several things at Sangeet Natak Academy to share and discuss and promote and propagate, preserve. So I know what kind of difficulty and what joy also in the process that we are doing something for our father's noble goals. My salutations to Ashish, although he's younger to me, because for the job, for the work he's doing, for the service he's doing for the cause of fine arts is monumental. People may not be even able to assess what are all there in the Mohan Kokar archives. We may be able to see only a very, very small fraction of it today. And his attendance book, annual, which is a treasure for all dancers. His work for young dancers, that is another area which is worth mentioning, because it is not enough if all the elders are going on saying something and doing their dance. How the next generation takes it, propagates it, carries it forward, that is essential, and Ashish is doing a lot of work in that area. My congratulations to him for that also. I'm very happy that Ashish, you are here to participate in Smriti Lahari, because I'm sure you have a lot of material to show on Bala. The first thing when I thought of this seminar is immediately Ashish, because I wanted to see what are all there in his collection. So this will be an opportunity for him to pull out all the old things and see letters, photos, even maybe some recordings, whatever. I'm awaiting, just like you all, to see what are all there. Hearty welcome, Ashish. I hope I have covered all the guests who are assembled here. Once again, a hearty thanks to all the guests of this morning's seminar. My pranams to all of you, and your kind generosity for being here. Namaskaram, and give us a good session. Thank you. Before we move on to the next segment, there's a small, beautiful, small thing that I want to introduce you to. There is Mrs. Shailaja and Sri Venugopal from Karnataka who have been in contact with me for about a year now. They are humble teachers in a school in Karnataka, and their passion is art and culture. They have been producing books in Kannada about traditional artists and legends of the past centuries. Imagine putting one's own money from school, being a school teacher's savings. They write the book, they edit it, and they bring it into a book form with their own resources. And then they distribute it to departments and students and others who are willing to buy it. 1 year ago, they approached me that they want to pen a book on Balasaraswati, whose centenary is coming up. So I used to provide them a lot of materials. I gave interviews, as also many others related to this sampradaya. They came in time yesterday, bringing the finished book, and then gave a copy to our Sri Ramaya, who was honored yesterday, the prime disciple of Balasaraswati and Ganeshan, who is here happily with us, and gave me a copy. Today they want to present it here to the seminar session. I request them to bring the book and present the copy. It is in Kannada, so many of us may not use it, but it is mainly for their region they have written it, because they want people to know about legends in their language. I want Shailaja to present a copy to Dr. Malati Rangaswamy. I request Venugopal also to come and accept a shawl from Dr. Malati Rangaswamy. Malati mamite kodu. Vanga Venugopal. Go. All the writers here will know the difficulty of bringing out a book. Vidvaneva vijanati vidvajjana parishramam. So it is our duty to honor such earnest couple on this very special occasion. Thank you, Shailaja and Venugopal, for writing this book on our venerated Guru, Srimati T. Balasaraswati. Thank you, and over to Srimati Roja Kannan.
I now request the chairperson, Dr. Malati Rangaswamy, to give her opening address. Srimati Priyamvada Shankar will now do the honors.
Namaskaram. At the outset, I'd like to thank the Dr. Raghavan Center for performing arts. Sorry. With age, I think I tend to forget sometimes. So I may be excused for that. Anyway, it gives me really immense pleasure to be here on this occasion, which was a totally unexpected gift to me, because I never expected that I would be participating in the centenary celebrations of the great Bala. I remember the time when, in 1956, I think, when the Music Academy started Padam classes and Bala's dance classes. And I remember distinctly Priyamvada being the first student. And myself and my friends and my sisters-in-law, 4 or 5 of us were Jayama's Padam class students at that time. So they used to take place simultaneously, and I used to see Priyamada in her pajamas learning dance, and Mr. Ramaya also, he was a novice at that time. He was very, very young. He had just come, and he used to be there at every session when Balama was teaching and when Jayama was teaching her Padam class. In the 1956 அந்த டைமில் நீங்கள் வந்தது எனக்கு நல்லா ஞாபகம் இருக்குது. நீங்கள்லாம் என்னோட ரொம்ப சின்ன பையனாக வந்தீங்க நீங்கள் இப்போ. I remember that. And it was a real, it was something, I think at that time, Padams and Javalis were so rare and were considered to be very difficult to render. And I'm sorry to say that they were not really very appreciated. So to bring out the beauty of these pieces, the Music Academy started a school where the Jayama taught Padams and Javalis and their special Kirtanas also, which is the heirloom of the Dhanamma family, all those Navagraha Kirtanas and the rest of them. And I think it was a wonderful time we had with Jayama. She used to be so sweet, so patient, and she used to keep on repeating it. It was not easy to follow her because each one of us came from a different school, and to blend all of us together and take us to that style of music, it was a real Herculean task for her, but she did it so beautifully. She used to be very patient and teach us and tell us, and sometimes she says, அப்படி பாடக்கூடாது, அதெல்லாம் மறந்து விடுங்க, இப்படி பாடுங்க அப்படின்னா. So I remember those were really very, very nice, pleasant days for me, nice memories, happy memories. And it was not only at that time that I was associated with the Dhanamma family. Both my father's family and my father-in-law's family were very, very close to the Dhanamma family. I remember Balasaraswati's aunt, Periyakutti Amma, Rajalakshmi Amma, she used to come and teach my aunt, my atte, who was a Veena player. He was a good musician and a All India Radio artist also. And it used to be so informal those days. She used to come in the morning, teach for a couple of hours, have her lunch, lie down and rest for some time, then get up again, teach for another 2 hours, and then leave by a rickshaw. That rickshaw used to wait for her, and she used to take the rickshaw and go home. It was all so informal, and I've listened to all her teaching. Though I was very young, I didn't learn from her, but I listened to a lot of her teaching, all these very rare kritis, so that my ears were tuned to that style of singing and that school of singing right from a very young age. I was about 7 or 8 years old, or maybe 9 years old at that time. And then one of my cousins was a student of Brindama. Brindama used to come home and teach her. And then in those days, they came home personally and stayed. There was no question of 1 hour, 2 hours, and gradation, things like that. They just stayed and taught till they thought it was enough for the day. So it was like that. And then another of my cousins learned Padams and Javalis from Muktama. So my whole family has been so involved with the Dhanamma family and that style of music. So we are so attuned to that style. We find it fantastic. We find it's one of the best styles, and it is a style where you can really appreciate what you're singing. It's not just a race against time or, showing off your expertise in brigas and things like that. It was slow, melodious music, which was very soothing. And coming to Balama, her dance was something out of this world. I think dance was Balama and Balama was dance. She was a personification of that style of dance. And it used to be so soothing, so pleasant, and you used to be transported somewhere else. When you saw her doing Abhinaya especially, Meenakshi Amman Pillai Tamil, you could picture a sweet little divine girl standing before her and being very naughty, refusing to come when she calls. I mean, it is something you can't talk about. It has to be experienced, which I was fortunate enough to have got that experience. And I think, I don't know, I think Balama was unique and something nobody can reach her level. Sorry to all the performing artists today who are fantastic in their own ways, but Balama she was just something else. She was somebody whom you go to a good dance performance and you appreciate the dance. You say, oh, she danced very well. Her adavus were very nice. Her abhinaya was nice. But with Balama, you can't explain. You can't put words into what you experienced. That was the kind of dance she had. And I'm happy that I was able to watch her dance a lot at the Music Academy and even otherwise, and her teaching her children, those students, especially Priyamada, who was her first student, and we were the first batch of Padam students from Jayama. From that time, I remember it's 1956 na patukongo, so many years now. Still, it's all very fresh in my memory. And I am very thankful to Nandini for having me participating in this function. I think it's a great, it's something, because having seen all that, for the past 60 years I have seen so many things, but I still remember Balama's class, Ramaya being there, and being a novice, learning to do Natvangam, and Jayama's beautiful rendering of Padams. I think I'm one of the blessed by God to experience all this. Thank you so much.
We now move on to Dr. Saskia Kassenboom to give her tribute to the Bala tradition. Srimati Priyambada Shankar will honor Dr. Saskia Kassenboom.
Namaskaram. I too would like to express my profound thanks to the Dr. V. Raghavan Center for Performing Arts for inviting me to this historical and very, very important gathering. It is, I think, for me, the first time that I see so many dancers, scholars, musicians, rasikas, who have a live experience and live exposure to the Balasaraswati family and the illustrious Bani of musicians and dancers back into the Tanjore court. This is a true blessing, and it is a kind of crown on my coming to India for the first time in 1975, which by now is, let's see, is 43 years already. And I think I have spent 2/3 of my life so far in this environment and by imbibing this wonderful culture and this very deep living experience of beauty, of depth, of music and of dance. So I'm very, very grateful to be here, and I would like to take you a little bit along on that journey with a burning question, because as you know, we Westerners, we always have questions. So I too have my question. And the question is actually something which was an occurring term in many of the classes with my guru, Srimati Nandini Ramani, where actually Bala was always present in the form of anecdotes, in the form of corrections, in the form of irritations. Do you want easy? Or master would put you in the corner and you have to sit there for 1 hour. So there were many, many memories of actually Nandini's life with Srimati T. Balasaraswati and with Master, whom I was fortunate enough also have classes in 1985. So what is this question? Actually, it is a term called auchitya, and it occurs in the improvisation in Abhinaya. Of course, Srimati T. Balasaraswati was very well known for her bhava, for her emotional impact. She did something that nobody could put the finger on, and that something was auchitya. Now, many times, auchitya is translated into English as propriety. I think this is a totally culturally wrong translation, because it has nothing to do with right or wrong. It has to do something with the Sanskrit uch. The verb uch is to please, to delight. Now, this is a dangerous translation again, because when does the dancer please on stage? When does the dancer delight on stage? And how does this abhinaya start working as something which is delightful? Especially in the modern day Bharatanatyam, there is great need and search for the source of abhinaya, the source of bhava. And maybe it is this auchitya which we have not yet unearthed, or please do let me know if you know to answer my question. When I came in 1975, I didn't have yet that question. I had been a pen friend with Srimati Nandini Ramani at the time for 2 years, and I was the first time to meet her in real life. 1975 was a year of many absolute news, coming to India, being so young, studying Sanskrit, studying theater studies, and my head was full of questions. And Nandini's father made me meet Balasaraswati in the music academy, in the dance class, where Nandini came for class, other students came for class, and there was the great Balasaraswati. So I was, of course, sitting and watching and thrilled. And there was a pause. And I came close and I asked a question. Can I ask a question? Yes, I could ask a question. So I had these theater studies and Indology and what is this and what about the future? And I said, what do you think of the future of Bharatanatyam? Completely idiotic question. So she said, what is there? People will dance. They have always danced, they will dance. Oh, okay. I was, of course, very grateful for this answer, but it didn't help me. Then I had another good one, because, of course, apart from questions like authenticity, retaining to the kind of curiosities of the 19th century, there is another question about professionality. Who is a professional and who is not? So I said, Balama, who is a dancer? Who is a professional dancer? She said, if you are a dancer, you dance. Now, I don't think there can be a more succinct answer. If you are a dancer, you dance. And you deeply involve yourself in the life of a dancer, because it never pertains only to the steps or to the music, but it pertains to life. And that brings us closer to this auchitya, because the auchitya is living the dance, living the world, and actually knowing from where the abhinaya comes, and how the abhinaya travels, and how the abhinaya affects the audience. Because basically in this style, in this bani, it is not the dancer who projects herself. The dancer does not try to be pleasing, but the dancer elicits the pleasure in the audience by the activation of their potential to feel, to remember, to a smarana of their world, of their lives, of their feelings. And that comes through the music, that comes through subtle nuances, that comes through a magic circle of a gesture. Manodharma can travel far and deep, but it's a magic circle. If you transgress the circle breaks. And this is actually what Auchitya is about. So it is not propriety, it is deeply knowing you, yourself, your culture, your audience, and deeply knowing how to elicit, experience bhava in the audience. Because basically bhava is derived from bhu, to be. And bhava is a causative. It is to make become, to make feel. It is not emoting an I feel. Look at me, how I feel, how beautifully I feel, expressing myself. No, it is eliciting the feeling in others and guiding others to have a deep, deep experience. So, in this search for Auchitya, I also had a look at Bharatanatyam Shastra, where there is a chapter on, again, wrong translation, Siddhi, translated as success. Siddhi is not success, Siddhi is power. And it is the power of affects that take an effect. So it's all about efficacy. This effect is what rasa has done to the audience, what bhava has manifested in the audience. So this chapter on Siddhi speaks about, again the wrong word, success, effect, efficacy in performance. And it says a performance is powerful when it has rasa, when it is full of rasa, that rasa is full of satya, sattva, beingness. And how do we know this? Okay, says Bharata, there are two types of success, two types of siddhi. There is a manushi siddhi, where people clap and say beautiful, beautiful. And there is a daiviki siddhi, there is a divine success. Now, what is the quality of that divine success? Anyone might have an answer, but I have a very short time, so I won't wait for your answer now. Maybe we can afterwards discuss. Let's listen to what Bharata has to say. Romanchasru, goosebumps and tears. And that is the power of bhava. That is the power of rasa. That is the power of auchitya, where the audience, the prekshaka, the looker, onlooker, cannot help being touched and starts crying and have horripilation. That is the power of life. And I think Balasaraswati's art was full of that deep, deep experience of life. Life in all its beauty, in its depth of Hindu culture, but also the depth of a human being, the depth of love, the depth of sorrow, the depth of pain, the depth of pride in her tradition, in her family, in her students, and the happiness of indeed evoking that romanchasru in her audience. I feel blessed that I have lived in a family where this was the mainstay of the family culture, living life to its full, living life in consciousness of the beauty and the ananda of the arts. I thank you all. I think from my perspective, I'm one of the few foreigners here that you have, I thank you from my heart that you have accepted me as a child, an adoptive child, to this culture. Thank you very much.
Our chief guest for this morning, Professor Sudharani Raghupati. I now request Sudha Auntie to come and share her feelings on Srimati T. Balasaraswati. Srimati Priyamada Shankar will now do the honors for Professor Sudharani Raghupati.
Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Distinguished artists, scholars, historians on the dais, distinguished audience, Kalidas, Priyamvada, Nandini, Sushma, my dear friends. Firstly, I would like to thank Nandini for having invited me to participate in the Centenary celebrations of Balama, organized by Dr. Raghavan Center for Performing Arts. I consider it an honor and privilege to be here and part of all of you today. My colleague Chitra is unable to be here, and Nandini wants me to say something about Balama, what Chitra would like to say. I don't think I'll do justice to that, because I thought I would share with you my life with Balama since 1954. Firstly, I would like to say a few words about Dr. Raghavan, who was very fond of me and my art. He saw me as he saw Priyamvada. And I first met him in 1958, in April, in Delhi, in Vigyan Bhavan, where both of us were there at the famous dance seminar of Sangeet Natak Academy. Priyamvada danced, I danced. We did quite well, not bad. We were demonstrating papers of our gurus. Then Balama danced, and we were ants. It was unbelievable. And the Balama danced in Kamala Devi ji's residence, where Indira Gandhi was sitting, Dr. Raghavan and Priyamvada. I don't remember that, don't you? All of us were there. Dr. Mohan Kokar, and Balama danced in the veranda. It was a mittongwa. There was a mittam in that Kamala Devi ji's house in Delhi, and Balama danced. I cried. I'm sure Priyamvada also cried, because we were old enough to see what Balama was doing. And Dr. Raghavan had great affection for me. And after I was married at the age of 19, and I've been in Madras since then for the last 53 years, he blessed my institution, which had Tangaswami Sharma as a Sanskrit professor, who was working with Dr. Raghavan, and Padma Bhushan Vidwan Madurai Krishnan as the director, Ramanathan, Adiyar Lakshmanan, Hariharan, Sethuraman as the teachers. So you can imagine what kind of an institution that was. And he came. And Priyama, and I think Nandini came with him. Next day I was delivering Sushma. Oh, so I'm blessed indeed to have known people like that. And Nandini has been a good friend of mine over the years. And now to Balama, was very close to me. And she would come here, next compound, after the class at the Music Academy, and come and sit there. Dr. Sundar Rajengar was the secretary of the Music Academy then. He would accompany. And Balama would talk and do movements and certain songs that she felt like doing. It was amazing how she did it. And one day, I still remember, Vedan, Kaatla, Shivalingam Pakaram, he's doing puja. The pujari is correcta vandu, ellam pottu, anushtanangalella seriya pannittu poiduvan. Then he would come, clear all that, and do his puja. which all of us do today as episodal Sanchari. In Sanchari Bhava, there is the episodal, the emotional, and the Ashtotram. So the episodal comes here, and where all of us, even today, or even a child can do it. And Vedan, Bana vechundu, and the Banatha vidrudungiradhu, the Balama had a beauty about that. The Banatha, to letting off the arrow. இப்போ எல்லாரும் ஷோல்டரை மூவ் பண்ணி கரெக்டாக பண்ணி டமால்னு அப்படி அடிக்கிறோம். Now Balama wouldn't do that. It would just be this. It was a turn of the hand and the look. அதை கரெக்டு பண்ணிவிட்டு water in the mouth, அபிஷேகம் for the lingam. வேறு என்ன அவன் கொடுக்க முடியும்? பூ தலையில் வச்சுட்டு இருந்தான் கொடுத்தான். ஸோ ஹியர் வாஸ் பாலம்மா டூயிங் ஆல் தட். எல்லாம் பண்ணுறான்னு சொல்லிட்டோம். தென் ஐ கோ பேக் டு அகாடமி ஸ்டேஜ். பிகாஸ் இங்கே பண்ணிவிட்டு தென் டிசம்பர் சீசன் வந்தோடனே அகாடமியில் பண்ணுறாவா. I won't explain, I'll just show it to you. It won't be like what Balamma did, but the idea, the auchityam that Saskia was talking about. The uchangra varte, the pleasure alledhu, it is something very deep. Abhishekam pannindruka, water is coming out. Honey is there. But what is this honey? It wouldn't be. Will one be giving the honey? No. It is honey. She doesn't. Then we immediately think of will the bee bite? That was not the question. It was a question of honey. Pouring honey over the linga. Squeezed it. On the linga, to squeeze the honey, and honey poured. So was it one comb, or was it many combs in that area, or it was just when Arjuna was doing penance to Shiva, and here was Bhima. Arjuna said, I've been doing penance, where is my flower? Because Bhima was pouring flowers. And Arjuna and Krishna said, one flower. And here was Bhima pouring, and all the flowers were just coming down. It was, the imagination was the honey that was being poured. That was Balamma's art. And why will there not be a tear? There will be a tear. The tear is there, the tear of joy, the rasana, the rasa. That was bhava. And I used to have discussions like this with her. And she was a very simple person actually, but my God, she can be very angry. She can be very angry. But one instance I would like to say about when Jayamma was there in Abhigyan Bhavan. Hey, ponne, vadi. I was nervous. நீ என்னமோ டான்ஸ் பண்ணுறேன் என்னமோ சொல்கிறாங்களே, என்னமோ ஆடிருக்கியாமே இப்போது பாடினியே. நானும் உட்காந்துருந்தேன் அங்கே தான். ஆமாம், நீங்கள் என்னமோ அபிநயா நிறுத்தா அப்படின்னு என்னமோ பேசுகிறீங்களே. வாட் இஸ் திஸ் நிறுத்தா அண்ட் அபிநயானா வேறு, நிறுத்தானா வேறுங்கிற கை கால் ஆட்டின்ட்டு சும்மா கைக்கும் கண்ணுக்கும் கொஞ்சம் கூட கனெக்ஷன் இல்லாமல். I'm using connection because the words she used was all Tamil. எப்படி ஆடுறது சொல்லுடி. இல்லைம்மா, இது அபிநய தர்ப்பணத்தில் கண் எங்கே போகிறதோ அங்கே தான் கை எங்கே போகிறதோ அங்கே கண் போகணும், கண் போகிற இடத்துல மனசு போகணும், மனசு போகிற இடத்துல பாவா அப்படின்னு சொல்லி கொடுத்துருக்காங்க. அப்படின்னா பாவம் வந்துடுமா? கை இப்படி பார்த்த உடனே அங்கே பார்த்த உடனே இங்கேருந்து பூ இருக்கு நீங்கள் முடியுமா? இல்லைம்மா, நிறுத்தாலையும் பாவம் இருக்கணும். தெர் இஸ் ஆல்சோ நிறுத்தா அபிநயா. Not just abhinaya alone, but nritta abhinaya, where when you're doing pure nritta also, there is a pleasantness of the face. The eyes move, they convey. So there is nritta abhinaya also, and then abhinaya. சரி, நிறுத்தால ஒரு உருப்படி பண்ணு, கிட்டத்தக்க தரையிட்டோம் பண்ணு பார்ப்போம் எப்படி ஆடுறேன். கிட்டத்தக்க தரைக்கிட்டோம் தேவையில்லையடி, கை கீழே வருதே, முக்கால்வாசி கை கீழே வருது இல்லையே, எல்லாம் இங்கே நிற்கிறது, நீ இப்படி ஆடுறியே. I mean, she was so observant. And Balamma one day came home, and that particular day she didn't tell me she was going to come. And I had a program. அப்போ இது அசிங்கமாக புடவை கட்டின்னு இருக்கேனே. பலமா எந்த ஒன்று கட்டிப்பேடா, குடிடி கட்டிக்கிறேன். என்னோட நிச்சயதார்த்த புடவையை I gave it to her and she wore it and came to the program. She appreciated it and I did Contain Sitaye Arunachala Kavi. She came. That was the biggest honor. I can never forget it. Makutam for me. Rama Katha Sudha Rasa. அப்படி இருக்குடி அந்த சீத்தை அந்த காப்வெப்ஸ் இருக்கிறச்சே இருக்குன்னு சொல்கிறச்சே, ஹனுமார் நீ அதை பண்ணியே, ஐயோ தலைவலியே வந்துடுத்து, அழுதுட்டேன்டி, ஒரு சாரீ டான் கொடு, சாரீ டான் அப்படின்னு. ஐ மீன், ஷி வுட் ஈவன் ஜோக் லைக் தட். அண்ட் மை அசோசியேஷன் வித் பாலம்மா ஹஸ் பின் ஸோ வண்டர்ஃபுல் அண்ட் ஸோ கிரேட். And with the last, I would like to demonstrate just one little bit of this Ain Pallikondiraya that she did at the academy. Ain Pallikondiraya, எப்படி வேணாலும் பண்ணலாம். பள்ளிக்கொண்டிரையா ஸ்ரீரங்கநாதனையேன். That day ஸ்ரீராகத்தில் பாடினான் ஞாபகம். It's many years ago. ஏன் பள்ளிக்கொண்டிரையா ஸ்ரீரங்கநாதனையேன். How did she show Ranganatha? That is, she never showed Ranganatha as just in the temple, confined as a sculpture of Srirangam. Huge, unimaginable. That was the Ain Pallikondiraya that she did. And Nandini, Sushma and Priyambada have that legacy. I am proud of myself as well as all of you. நந்தினி கிட்டே அதை நிறைய பார்க்குறேன். என்னன்னா, ஒரு வேர்டுக்கு ஒரு அர்த்தம் பிடிச்சான்னா அது ரூட்டுக்கு போய் அதை அக்குவேறு ஆண்வேரியாக பிரித்து அந்த வார்த்தைகள் ஏபிசிடி பூரா ஏபிசிடின்னு எல்லாம் எடுத்து அப்புறமா சேர்த்து தென் தி ஐடியா தென் த வாக்கியாபிநயா அதெல்லாம் அப்புறமா தான் வரும். அந்த மாதிரி தான் அவர் சொல்லிக் கொடுக்குறா. ஸோ டு பி ஹர் ஸ்டூடெண்ட் ஆல்சோ இஸ் டிஃபிகல்ட். அது நான் இப்போவே சொல்லிவிடுறேன். அதை போகணுன்னு அழுதுண்டு ஐயோ ஏன் தான் டான்ஸ் பண்ணுறோமோ, ஏன் தான் இப்படி பண்ணுறோம். தட் இஸ் அன்லெஸ் யூ ஹேவ் த டெப்த் ஆஃப் அந்த டெப்த் அந்த நந்தினிக்கு இருக்குது. அது சுஷ்மா கிட்ட நான் பார்க்குறேன், பிரியம்பதா இப்படியும் இருக்குங்கிறது எனக்கு முதலே தெரியும். ஸோ தட் இஸ் நோ இது. அண்ட் ஐ எம் ஸோ ப்ரவுட் டு பி பார்ட் ஆஃப் ஆல் ஆஃப் யூ டுடே அண்ட் தேங்க் யூ வெரி மச் ஃபார் ஹேவிங் மீ.
Thank you, Mas, for your kind words. This evening in the Padamanjari, Srimati Priyambada will do the Ain Pallikondiraya which is actually in Madhyamavati Raga. There is an episode attached to it which it will be compared during the program. You will see her perform for the time-honored vocal support of Sri C.P. Gnanasundaram and Sri K. Ramaya with G.A. Kamram, our old team. It's a recorded music. We want to show how that music and dance lived in that period. Before we move on to the next segment, I have a great joy in welcoming some of the young torchbearers from great traditions who are here, coming all the way from Coimbatore, Tiruchi and Tanjavur. The first and foremost being our very dear Shri K.P.K. Chandrasekharan, a dance teacher in Thiruvarur School, son of the illustrious, the venerated Ishaiperunar K.P. Kittappa Pillai, and Valur Painiyappan, who has come all the way from Coimbatore, torchbearer of the Valur lineage. Also, Sri Krishnaraj, head of the dance department now in Annamalai University, who is again a senior disciple of Kittappa Pillai. And if there are anyone else, I don't know. I see 3 of them here. Welcome them heartily, because these are the future generation torchbearers of those traditional families. We must all give them again another. Subhashini Chandrasekhar, who is also here, faculty of the Annamalai University Department, daughter-in-law of the famous Tanjavur Arunachalam Pillai, and her mother's side is also Rajalakshmi Ammal. I welcome each one of them, because these young people give us a lot of strength that the future will be very much assured in the continuation of the traditional methodology in teaching. We must all support such young teachers. We take a moment to honor Srimati Jaya of Raga Sudha, who has generously donated the space for us free of cost. I would like to request her to come and receive a small memento from Dr. Malati Rangaswamy. After this, the first talk will begin.
We now proceed to the next segment of this morning's Smriti Lahari. As we proceed to the session, we wish to inform that the duration of each segment will be for 25 minutes, covering the topic in 15 minutes and interaction with the audience for about 10 minutes. Members of the audience who wish to ask questions can give it in writing in advance or pass it on during the talk to the team members, myself or Srilata Vinod, Padma Lakshmi, Divya Sena and Supriya Ravikumar, who can collect the same from you. The questions will be taken up only after the talk, so kindly keep your queries for the time allotted for that, and hope you will enjoy the session and its interactive part. I now invite Dr. Gauri Ramnarayan for her first speech this morning. Srimati Priyamvada Shankar will now take a moment and honor Srimati Gauri Ramnarayan.
As Priyamvada honors Dr. Gauri Ramnarayan, I have a very pleasant, what can I say, announcement to make about the presence of Srimati Sukanya Vijay and Ms. Janaki, who are part of our Shruti team, where I'm also one of the senior associates. I'm very happy they are here. There's also the other media persons who have been kind enough to spare time this morning. Thank you.
நமஸ்காரம். பெஞ்சில் ஸ்கூல் வாத்தியார் நிறுத்தி வைக்கிற மாதிரி இருக்கு. நண்பர்களே, பெரியோர்களே, கலைஞர்களே, it's such an honor, such a pleasure and privilege to be a part of this commemorative event today, particularly as it is organized by a childhood friend of mine, Nandini Ramani, with whom we've had continuous, warm, affectionate, bonding right through all those years. It's also a pleasure to have Priyambada here, someone whom I admired so much that I used to follow her around like Mary's lamb. And of course, Kalidas and Charudattan were also part of my growing up. I used to look upon them as romantic heroes in those days, mainly because of their names. I have to tell you that. And it's a great, I cannot tell you what joy it is to participate in an event organized by a center named after Dr. Raghavan, whom we all venerated. And I think I also loved him, even though he was quite a formidable person. And it is a matter of great regret to me that when I finally did my doctoral studies, I could not benefit from his tuition, though it was he who told me when I was a child that I should stop studying English and learn Sanskrit. I'm extremely grateful to Dr. Kunjini Raja, who was a magnificent guide. Not that, I mean. But Dr. Raghavan is someone whom I still continue to miss. So my part is very simple. I'm really not going to talk about Tamilisai and Bala, which was the title that I suggested to Nandini, because I think it's a very dry and academic subject. And as I was preparing for it, I realized that it's much more interesting to look at Balasaraswati as she was, I'm not going to say Srimati Balasaraswati each time, forgive me, Balama, through the eyes of a contemporary who has left written records of his, of the way he saw her in many different ways. And this is, of course, Kalki Krishnamurti, my grandfather. He has written many, I found that he has written several reviews of not only Bala's performance, but the performances of the family members in different ways. And he makes references to them when he writes about other things, just casually like that. He seems to have held them in, I don't know, I won't use the word veneration, but extraordinary admiration. And I must also say that though in the tradition of Dhanamal, who dismissed all talk about music at the Music Academy with avanga sangeethata patti pesrangala, Balama also used to say sangeethata patti natyata patti eludrangala, but she had tremendous regard for Kalki Krishnamurti. In a rare moment, she even admitted to my mother, Anandi, and in the presence of other witnesses, once your father wrote about how my mother, Jayama, and I clashed on the stage. I didn't like it, but he was right. But what to do? As she got older, my mother became more and more difficult, more and more stubborn. அதே இங்கிலீஷில் சொல்கிறச்சு அவ்வளோ நல்லா இல்லை, சில இடங்களில் தமிழே படிச்சுடலான்னு நினைக்கிறேன். I'm sure you will want to know what he said about the duo, so I'm translating it for you. I quote, "No one can surpass Balasaraswati in Abhinaya, and it's undoubtedly her Abhinaya was enhanced by her mother's singing. However, they have lost their rapport completely. The mother stops suddenly singing. The daughter glares at her. In Varugalamo, this tussle once turned Karunarasa into Raudrarasa. Pathos became rage. However, their Taye Yashoda was so superb. இது போதும் இந்த கச்சேரிக்கு வந்ததுன்னு நான் திருப்திப்படுத்திட்டு வீட்டுக்கு போயிட்டேன். This was enough for me for that day, he says. Like everyone else in his generation, Kalki had believed at first that Sadir was, if not downright cheap, definitely not refined. At any rate, Sadir had to be reformed, its impurities removed, in order to become respectable enough to be showcased before persons of class. He was well aware of Rukmini Devi's aesthetics and efforts in this direction. In fact, I don't know, it's a little known fact that he was a founder member of Kalakshetra. But this is what he wrote after his first encounter with Balasaraswati's dance in, I think, 1933 or 32. Yes, he says. I'm going to do it, I'm doing a translation. Yes, we must bring reform to Bharatanatyam. We must insist on purity. Sirdirtham veno, tuimai vendum. But not in the performer. There's nothing wrong with her. We need to reform the public, to come on time, to stop walking brazenly and noisily across the hall to sit in the front row and then go on chatting to one another loudly, and leaving as and when they like. We must educate the audience to maintain order and silence. I don't know if this reform is in place as yet. At another place, he describes how Balama's recital was ruined by clouds of dust arising from the stage. He jokes about it. வாழ்வாவது மாயம் அது மண்ணாவது திண்ணம் என்ற வார்த்தையை எடுத்துக்கொண்டு இந்த பாடலை எடுத்துக்கொண்டு பாலமா அபிநயம் செய்திருந்தால் அது மிகவும் பொருத்தமாக இருந்திருக்கும். But it's clear that he's highly critical of the organizers and demands their respect for the art and for the artist. Kalki also talks about how watching Balama up close in the right ambience, along with true Rasikas, in the home of his mentor, Rasikamani, T.K. Chidambaranatha Mudaliyar in Kutralam, left him in speechless wonder. Other dignitaries like P. Sri Acharya and R.V. Shastri. R.V. Shastri is the father of Lakshmi Shankar. They were equally awestruck. It seems he told my mother, even Rajaji, who was no friend to dancing, could not escape Bala's spell. On another occasion, Kalki describes the miracle of the glum, stony-faced, Right Honorable Srinivasa Shastri, some VIP of those times whom most of us don't know, who was always sitting in the front row of many, many programs, who was never known to smile, actually burst into uncontrollable laughter when he saw Bala's Abhinaya in the song Thundil Puluvinai Pol, which is a Bharatiyar song. So this gives me an idea of how people looked at Bala at that time, you know. Kalki's acclamation is wholehearted, but tempered with a caveat. He sums up, neither Jayama's music nor Bala's dance is suitable for huge auditoria or large audiences. You can enjoy their art only if it is in a smaller chamber theater where you can connect with them. And much before Bala, Kalki had been captivated by Veena Dhanammal. As soon as he came to Madras, he went to her Friday. He has written a lot about it. I'm just going to quote a small paragraph here. Dhanam என்ற பெயர் இவருக்கு உண்மையாகவும் பெயர் அளவிலும் பொருந்தி இருக்கிறது. வீணை தனத்திடம் பொருட்செல்வம் பூஜ்யம். கலை செல்வமே இவருடைய சாம்ராஜ்யம். வயது நிரம்ப ஆகிவிட்டது, கண் போய்விட்டது, தொண்டையில் நடுக்கம். ஆனால் உண்மையான சங்கீத செல்வத்தை தேடுபவர்கள் ஜார்ஜ் டவுனில் சகிக்க முடியாத நாற்றமுள்ள ஒரு சந்தில் அவர் வீட்டைத்தான் நாடி செல்கிறார்கள். So this gives you a picture of Dhanammal, the whole family background. A random reference to Dhanammal intrigues me where Kalki says, Dhanammal sings the song and makes us see the face of Shakuntalai, brimming with love. I don't know what the song is, he doesn't mention. Then, with her veena, she takes us into the cool woods with blossoming flowers, lovely birds, little fawn, and shows the distant hermitage by the lake. What becomes absolutely clear in this description is the visual quality of Dhanammal's singing and playing, and her vivid melodic abhinaya. Being rooted in this panoramic tradition definitely authorized Balama to say that dance is music and music is dance. She saw it in her own grandmother. But the Dhanam legacy was no unmixed blessing, as Kalki notes, to the daughters and granddaughters, whom he mentions by name. He remarks that since their benchmark was so high, they could never be satisfied by any other school of singing. And for the same reason, they could never be satisfied with their own singing. The reviews I'm quoting from are from the 1930s and early 40s. And those decades were marked by a very peculiar, and I would even say ludicrous, absurd protest in Carnatic music. Yes, I'm referring to the Tamil Isai movement, agitating for the inclusion of Tamil songs in classical Carnatic concerts in Tamil Nadu. Up until then, Tamil was confined to tail pieces, very light pieces, small tukadas. Singing a Tamil kriti as a lead piece in the concert was considered to be taboo. Some even thought of it as blasphemy and sacrilege. Singing a Tamil Kriti, some believed, was to declare war against Tyagaraja and Muthuswami Dikshitar. Some even declared that Tamil was a Katumirandi Bhasha, a savage tongue, and only Sundara Telugu was suitable for dance, for music. This particularly, this bitter controversy raged for, can you believe it, 2 decades. Musicians took sides. M.S. Subbulakshmi was banned for 5 years from the Music Academy for daring to sing Tamil songs. Tamil Isai conferences were held for only Tamil songs. Kalki was a Tamil Isai crusader who campaigned relentlessly for Tamil songs. So it is interesting to note that every song that he mentions when he talks about Balasaraswati, in all those years, in all the reviews, many different reviews he's written, he singles out only Tamil songs to write about. I think that was very, very revealing to me, tells me about the socio-political aspect of that time. Aduvum Solluval, Nidirayil Soppanathil, Neelamayil Vahanano, Velavare, Kavava, Pillai Tamil. Krishnani Begane makes an appearance, but in the context of talking about something else, where he says that even though the language is Kannada, Bala's Abhinaya made you forget that it was in a different language. So, and he also commends the diction of this family in singing these Tamil songs. And he compares them to many other big guns of the time, like Semmangudi, particularly Semmangudi and so many others. I don't want to mention their names. And says that that it was very difficult for the listener to know what language they were singing in, even if they were singing in Tamil. It sounded like Greek and Latin to him. Whereas when the women of the Dhanamal family sang, and he mentions Bala and Jayamal in particular, the language was crystal clear, and the enunciation was perfect. And the words themselves created their own music. From Kalki's sportive pen, we learn about the renaissance of Bharatanatyam in the 1930s. Those who denigrated the old Sadir were anxious to make their daughters learn the new Bharatanatyam. He describes being tortured, absolutely tortured by eager parents wanting to show off their little toddlers, making them dance before Kalki, the critic. And Kannu, Kolande, Mamaku, Balasaraswati dance pannikami, Rukmini Devi dance pannikami, abdin solli pran edutruvalam. So he would finally had to escape by saying, Adada, Balasaraswati ருக்மிணியாவது எல்லாரும் வந்து இந்த குழந்தைகிட்ட பிச்சை வாங்கணும் சார் அப்படின்னு சொல்லிட்டு he would go able to make good his escape. But as he went away after this torture, he consoled himself with the thought that at least people's attitudes towards Bharatanatyam was changing. No longer did they consider it to be an immoral activity. And we must remember that he also underwent this mind change, but I hope that he didn't show off his daughter Anandi to chance visitors. Kalki identifies the pioneer who wrought this change of attitude in society, who established the power and the so-called, within quotes, respectability and dignity of Bharatanatyam, in very unambiguous words, making a choice of a person who is very, very different from the person that we identify this with. He says, and I quote him, Bharatanatyam kalaikku சமீபத்தில் புத்துயிர் அளித்தவர்களில் ஸ்ரீமதி பாலசரஸ்வதியின் பெயர்தான் நமக்கு முதலில் ஞாபகம் வருகிறது. இவ்வாறு ஸ்ரீமதி பாலசரஸ்வதியால் புத்துயிர் பெற்ற நாட்டிய கலைக்கு ஸ்ரீமதி ருக்மிணி தேவி கௌரவமும் அந்தஸ்தும் அளித்து இருக்கிறார். He mentions this in 2 different contexts, identifying Bala as the person who created the Renaissance, who instigated the Renaissance of Bharatanatyam. In this context, I think you will like to know Kalki's record of Uday Shankar's visit to Chennai in 1933. And I'm going to translate this because I think it's really fast. I was fascinated by it. Uday Shankar and Balasaraswati practice entirely different genres. And yet, a broad general comparison will show that Uday Shankar does not possess even a quarter of Balasaraswati's genius. I hear that after seeing Balasaraswati at Gana Mandir, Uday Shankar declared, "Don't expect anything so wonderful from my concert tomorrow at the Museum Theatre." However, the sum paid, this gets interesting, the sum paid by just 10 spectators sitting in the front row to watch Uday Shankar at Museum Theatre would have covered the entire cost of Balasaraswati's concert. I may add that none of our musicians, dancers, actors, artists bothered to come and see Uday Shankar. None of our Vidwans had any desire to see an artist who had acquired international repute. But look at Uday Shankar. He not only went to see Bala, he also paid her a princely sum of 100 rupees and filmed her dancing. It will be no surprise to me if he makes a lakh of rupees by adapting bits and pieces from what he has filmed. End quote. Just two tidbits before I conclude. It is no secret that the impact of Bala's dancing deeply influenced Kalki, as it did many others of that generation, to get his daughter trained in Bharatanatyam. But why did he go to Vaduvur Ramaya Pillai instead of going to Balasaraswati? It's a question that I asked my mother. She gave me a very tentative answer because she didn't remember it well. But she said, in those days, we learned from Natuvanars, not from performers. But my father also felt that Bala's art was her own. It was not a style that could be learnt by a total newcomer without the background. You had to be born in that family. I'm not sure that Kalki was right, because I don't think he was right, because Bala has created so many artists who did not belong to her own family, and they are all sitting here before me. But this was his perspective at that time, and worth noting. About Dhanammal, he had said much the same thing. And he said, "Raga bhavamum, sahitya bhavamum, பூரணமாக விளங்கும்படி பாடுவது என்பதற்கு உதாரணமாக இருந்தது தனம்மாள் பாடி வாசித்த மகிம தெளிய தரமா." இங்கே ஒரு தெலுங்கு பாட்டு வந்துடுறது எப்படியோ. So there is an exception there, மகிம தெளிய தரமா. Then he says, but I want to say that not everyone can follow this example. You can do this only if you know the Hridaya Tattvam. I don't know how to translate that, the soul, the heart of the music, the Atma Anubhavam, the spiritual understanding of the music. Those who cannot do this, better stick to glittering sangatis and Laya fireworks. So, the film, I'm not sure that many of you, I'm sure all of you know that Kalki wrote a cult novel called Shivakami in Shapatham with a dancer as the protagonist, and that novel, that magnum opus, has been a great contributor and influence for the renaissance of Bharatanatyam in Tamil Nadu. But Kalki was not a Natuvanar. Kalki did not belong to a dance family or a music family. Music, yes, Tanjavur Manila Sangeetam. How did he create a wonderful dancer in Shivakami who inspired almost all the senior dancers that we know today to take up dancing? How did he do that? This is a question for which I think I don't have to give you an answer. He had an inspiring example before him whom he admired beyond words, which is what he says, "Vaarthayala vivarikka mudiyadunu solrar Balammaava patti." And but do you know that he wrote Shivakami in Shapatham first as a film script, and no prizes for guessing whom he thought should play Shivakami? The film was shelved, but a cult novel was born. But Balamma did not disappear from Kalki's vision. If he had not seen Balamma dance, he could have never convincingly, even gloriously, portrayed his protagonist, the dancer Shivakami. And another interesting thing that I now think of in the context of the centenary is that the fact that he creates an extraordinary, divine, celestial dancer in Shivakami, but makes her belong to the class of women who can never hope to marry anyone who is born in a so-called higher caste. He was dealing with socio-political issues in that novel, which most people don't look at these days. She was a goddess on the stage, but something else once she was off the stage. This is a fact that many women, many great women artists of those times had to, this is a pain that they had to endure. And whenever he describes Shivakami dancing to the beautiful Tamil songs that he loved, we know that they are being performed in Kalki's mind's eye by Balamma. Nobody else could do the Anubhavas, the Sanchari Bhavas, the Satvika Bhavas, which Kalki details so carefully. I won't say carefully, but so delightfully when he describes Shivakami's dance. He doesn't say Shivakami dances. He tells us what she danced and how she danced. And another thing was that Shivakami, in every time he introduces her dancing, he says, Shivakami stood up and sang the song fully and then began to dance. She had no vocal accompanist. She sang herself and performed her padams. And I want to read one small extract of this Kalki's thing before, to give you an idea of what I mean. And I'm extremely happy that Priyadarshini Govind is here, because in my play Flame of the Forest, she danced to two of those songs, which Kalki, I think, in his mental eye, visualized Shivakami dancing. இது முன்னம் அவனுடைய நாமம் கேட்டாள் எல்லாருக்கும் தெரியும்னு நினைக்கிறேன். நான் சுருக்கமாக சொல்கிறேன். முன்னம் அவனுடைய நாமம் கேட்டாள், மூர்த்தி அவனிருக்கும் வண்ணம் கேட்டாள், பின்னை அவனுடைய ஆரூர் கேட்டாள், பெம்மான் அவனுக்கே பிச்சியானாள், அன்னையையும் அத்தனையும் அன்றே நீத்தாள், அகன்றாள் அகலிடத்தார் ஆச்சாரத்தை தன்னை மறந்தாள், தன் நாமம் கெட்டாள், தலைப்பட்டாள் நங்கை தலைவன் தாளே. ஐயோ, என்ன வேர்ட்ஸ்! அப்பர் மாதிரி ஒருத்தர் எழுதுறதுக்கு எப்படி தான் எழுதினாரோ தெரியல எனக்கு. அந்த பாட்டை இவர் டிஸ்கிரைப் பண்ணுறச்ச சிவகாமி எப்படி ஆடினான்னு சொல்கிறார். பாட்டை பாடிட்டு, அப்போது சிவகாமியை பார்த்து கொண்டிருந்தவர்களுக்கு இவ்வுலகம் தோன்றிய நாளிலிருந்து பெண் உள்ளத்தில் அரும்பி மலர்ந்த காதல் உணர்ச்சியே ஒரு உருக்கொண்டு அவர்கள் முன்னால் நிற்பது போல தோன்றியது. முதலில் ஒரு இளம் கன்னிகையின் இதயத்தில் காதல் உதயமாகும்போது அதனுடன் பிறக்கும் நாணம் கலந்த இன்பப் பெருக்கை அவர்கள் கண் முன்னால் கண்டார்கள். காதல் வளர்ந்து வரும் ஆரம்ப தினங்களில் காதலனுடைய பெயரை கேட்கும் போதும் அவனுடைய இருப்பிடம், குணாதிசயங்கள் இவற்றை அறியும் போதும் அவளுடைய இதயத்தில் பொங்கி ததும்பும் ஆனந்தத்தை கண்டார்கள். அதனால் அவளுடைய மேனியில் ஏற்படும் விசித்திரமான வித்தியாசங்களை கண்டார்கள், பிரத்யட்சமாக கண்டார்கள். காதல் முற்றும் போது எப்படி அது சித்த பிரமையின் சுபாவத்தை எய்தி காதலியை பித்து பிடித்தவளாக்குகிறது என்பதையும், காதலுக்காகவும் காதலனுக்காகவும் பெண்ணானவள் எப்பேற்பட்ட தியாகங்களையெல்லாம் செய்ய சித்தமாகி விடுகிறாள் என்பதையும் கண்கூடாக பார்த்தார்கள். In the descriptions of these Anubhavas, Sancharis and so on, this emotional complex, I don't think he could have done it without having seen Balamma. It is her nuanced abhinaya, her extremely spontaneous and extremely sophisticated abhinaya, which must have given him a poetic understanding of dance. And there are many descriptions of Shivakami's dance like this, where he describes, please, those of you who know Tamil, just read it for the sake of knowing how he was influenced by Balamma. So, now we know that Balamma thought of Dhanamal as the matrix of her art. In fact, all the girls of that family, all the ladies of that family, considered Dhanamal to be the acme of everything that they aspired for. So I will end with Kalki's obituary of Dhanamal in 1938. And I'm reading it because it moved Balamma so deeply that she actually talked about it. And this is what he says. Dhanam pochu, that's the title. Wealth is gone. Sangeeta உலகத்தின் சிறந்த தனம் போய்விட்டது. இவரை போல உலகத்தில் இதற்கு முன் பிறந்ததில்லை, இனிமேலும் பிறக்கப் போவதில்லை என்று சொல்லக்கூடியவர்கள் உலகத்தில் பல 100 வருடங்களுக்கு ஒரு முறை தான் தோன்றுவார்கள். அசோக சக்கரவர்த்தி, கம்ப சக்கரவர்த்தி, தியாகராஜர் இவர்களை குறிப்பிடுகிறார். பிறகு சொல்கிறார், அவ்வாறு சங்கீத கலைஞர்களுள் ஒருவரை பற்றி நாம் சொல்ல வேண்டுமென்றால் வீணை தனம்மாள் ஒருவரை குறித்து தான் அவதரித்தார் என்று சொல்ல முடியும். And now I remember what Saskia said, because this is what Kalki says. ஆனந்த பாஷ்பம் என்று புராண இதிகாசங்களில் நாம் அடிக்கடி படித்திருக்கிறோம் அல்லவா? இந்த ஆனந்த பாஷ்பம் என்பது புராண புழுகுகளில் ஒன்று என்பதாக நான் நினைத்து கொண்டிருந்தேன். ஆனால் அப்படியல்ல. ஆனந்த பாஷ்பம் என்பது உண்மையில் உண்டு என்று சென்ற வருடத்தில் சங்கீத வித்வத் சபையின் பந்தலில் நடந்த வீணை தனமாளின் கச்சேரியின் போது தெரிந்து கொண்டேன். வீணையில் சங்கராபரணத்தை எடுத்து ஒரு நிமிடம் வாசித்துவிட்டு குலம் தரும் என்று 2 வார்த்தைகளை சொன்னாரோ இல்லையோ, எங்கிருந்தோ கண்களில் ஜலம் வந்துவிட்டது. இது என்ன பைத்தியம்? எதற்காக இப்போது கண்ணில் ஜலம் துளிக்கிறது? யாராவது பார்க்க போகிறார்களே என்று வெட்கமாயிருந்தது. அப்போது கண்ணீர் வந்ததற்கு வேறு என்ன காரணமாக இருக்க முடியும்? அது சோகத்தினால் வந்த கண்ணீர் அல்ல. ஏனென்றால் பாடிய ராகம் சங்கராபரணம். குலம் தரும் என்ற வார்த்தையிலும் சோகரசம் இல்லை. அப்போது துளித்த கண்ணீர் ஆனந்த பாஷ்பம்தான் என்பதில் சந்தேகம் என்ன? பேரின்பம் என்பது இதுதானோ? அப்படி பாட்டின் ஆரம்பத்தில் உண்டான ஆனந்த பாஷ்பம் நாராயணா எனும் நாமம் என்று முடித்தபோது உண்மையில் துக்க கண்ணீராக மாறிவிட்டது. இவ்வளவு உயர்ந்த சங்கீதத்தை, கடவுளர்க்கே உரியதென்று சொல்லக்கூடிய இந்த தெய்வீக கானத்தை மறுபடியும் கேட்க கொடுத்து வைக்குமோ என்ற எண்ணத்தினால்தான். I think these words by Kalki, which talks about Romancha and Ashru in responding to Dhanamal's music, is something that each one of us in this hall at least have experienced when we saw Balamma, definitely. Vishwa, her brother, an all-time hero of mine, and the other great musicians, the real Sangeeta Kalanidhis in their family. They didn't need a title. They were Sangeeta Kalanidhis. They were the treasure house of art. And I want to say that this is a legacy that we definitely need to, venerate, remember, memorialize, love, adore, and feel proud of. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Gauri Ramnaran, for that very inspiring and in-depth analysis of Kalki and Balasaraswati. The musical aspect of Bala's tradition will be discussed by Vidushi Srimati Charumati Ramachandran. We now invite her to speak on that subject. I invite Srimati Premvada Shankar to honor Srimati Charumati Ramachandran. Ladies and gentlemen, at the outset, I would like to extend my gratitude to Nandini Ramani and her family, disciple of Tanjavur Balasaraswati, for this great opportunity. I would compare Veena Dhanamal and her ancestors to several banyan trees, which, like many other trees, are revered in our all-embracing Hindu way of life. That is why Ala Vriksha, Kadamba Vriksha, Punnai, Arashu, and other indigenous trees are not just shade-giving, but when prayed to, the trees which are sacred blesses in abundance. In his Kshetra Kritis, the composer Muthuswami Dikshidhar also includes the Sthala Vrikshas, or the sacred tree of every particular temple and deity. In the Kritis about Madurai are the words Kadambari Priyaye Kadamba Kanana Ye Namaste Namaste, he mentions, and also in Meenakshi Memudam, Meenalochani Pashamochani Manini கதம்பவனவாசினி, the sacred trees பற்றி அவர் சொல்கிறார். For many generations, the Veenadanam family was completely, I'm talking about our ancestors also, starting from Papammal, the court dancer. They were involved in classical music and dance and became a repository of great compositions and Natya repertoires. One particular tree, the Veenadanam tree, got transplanted to Madras, and the rest, as they say, is history. Veenadanammal knew Veenai Shanmugavadivu, mother of M.S. Subbulakshmi. She knew Bangalore Nagaratnam. She taught music to many talents, including Madras Lalitangi, mother and guru of my revered guru, Srimati M.L. Vasantakumari. And hence, it is a very proud connection for me to the Veenadanam family. The commonality here is not only music, but their background of origin in families which were strictly artistic. And not only that, they were always headed by powerful, talented women whose sole aim was the preservation and propagation of the twin arts of music and dance, which two arts had royal, temple and rich patronage, be it from Rajaraja Chola or the Nayaks or the Maratha kings or other zamindars and patrons. The greatest kings and patrons with the greatest respect built lofty temples, and in every temple we still find lifelike sculptures of musicians, instruments, dancers, and dance poses, thereby underlining the fact that this twin art is sacred in nature and fit for the gods themselves, which leads us to the fact that these arts should not be trivialized or diluted in any manner. Dhanammal's large family yielded many artists, but like each branch of a tree, they differed in style and content according to their manodharma or flights of imagination. Each tree branch differs in shape and size, as you know. I have heard and witnessed Bala mass dance and music. It was different, creative, very subtle and aesthetic. Having been trained in music and dance, she chose dance as she felt that her musicality automatically led to the interpretation through dance. In this also, it is the genius of her mother Jayammal, a superlative singer who chose Kandappa Nattavanar as the guru for her tall, lovely daughter, whom she felt had the expressive face and hands for abhinaya or mime, and whose graceful presence could light up a stage. Jayammal was right all the way, like all mothers who care. Here I'd like to mention that it was my mother, Alamelu Vishwanathan, who inculcated the love of arts in all of us in our family. Similarly, in Trichu Ramchandran's case, my husband, in Ramchandran's case, it was his mother Kamalambal who initiated him in music. So the mothers play a very important role, so also Jayama with Bala. One must remember at that time, there were not many dancers in that generation in Bala's family. So she was the first to take up dancing full time, though she was trained in music. And that is the secret. She knew the music so well. எல்லா டான்சர்ஸ்க்கு அது ரொம்ப இம்பார்ட்டண்ட். அவளுக்கு மியூசிக் தெரியணும். அந்த தெரிஞ்ச அந்த வித்தியாசமே வேறு. ஜஸ்ட் ஒரு தாளத்துக்கு ஆடுறதோ இல்லை அவள் நிஜமாகவே தெரிஞ்சுன்னு ஆடும்போது அந்த வித்தியாசம் தெரியும். அதுதான் பாலாக்கு. ஏன்னா 3 வயசுலேருந்து பாட்டு கற்றுண்டா, 5 வயசுலேருந்து டான்ஸ் கற்றுண்டா. ஸோ அது ரெண்டுமே சேர்ந்து இணைஞ்சு போயிடுது. என்னோடய குரு எம்எல்வி அம்மா நிறையா சொல்லியிருக்கா, அந்த ஹோல் ஃபேமிலி பற்றி சொல்லியிருக்கா. ஒரு தடவை பாலசரஸ்வதி பற்றி பேச்சு வந்தபோது நான் கேட்டேன். அப்போ அக்கா சொன்னா, அக்கான்னு தான் நாங்கள் சொல்லுவோம். அக்கா சொன்ன ஒரு ஃப்ரீயாக டைம் இருந்தது. அப்போ அக்கா சொன்னால், ஒரு தடவை நான் போனேன், பாலா டான்ஸுக்கு போனேன். இந்த சஞ்சாரி பாவத்தில் வந்து பட்டம் விடுற மாதிரி காமிச்சா, அது என்ன கான்டெக்ஸ்ட் தெரியல, கைட் ஃப்ளையிங்கை காமிச்சாலாம். ஸோ எம்எல்வி அம்மாவுக்கு அது ரொம்ப அது ஞாபகம் வச்சுட்டு இருந்தேன். அந்த மாதிரி க்ரியேட்டிவாக ஆன் த ஸ்பாட் சஞ்சாரி பண்ணினா நான் அசந்து போயிட்டேன்னு சொன்னேன். Similarly, when Bala's cousins T. Brinda and T. Mukta rebelled against family traditions and insisted on getting trained for raga, nerval, swaras and pallavis, they were, as youngsters, sent to far-off Kanchipuram to train under a great consummate Pallavi Vidva Nayana Pillai. The two Kuttis patiently underwent Gurukulavasam and even sang their first concert in Kanchi, the same kshetra where Bala had her Arangetam. These three artists grew very tall in the family because they had their own minds. Creative-ஆ பண்ணணும், அதுவே வீணதனம் சொல்லி கொடுத்ததே பண்ணாமல், இதே தான் எங்கள் குருவும் சொல்லுவாள், இதை பேஸாக வச்சுட்டு நீ டெவலப் பண்ணு, நீ ஏதாவது டியூன் பண்ணு, நீ பல்லவி கம்போஸ் பண்ணு, நீ கம்போஸே பண்ணு, தரு பண்ணு, இந்த மாதிரிலாம் எங்களை என்கரேஜ் பண்ணுவாள். ஸோ இவாளும் க்ரியேட்டிவாக பண்ணதுனால தான் இவள் வந்து 3 பேரும், பிருந்தா, முக்தா, பாலா, அஃப்கோர்ஸ் டி விஸ்வநாதன் ஆல்சோ, எல்லாருமே டெவலப் ஆனது என்னென்னா அந்த க்ரியேட்டிவ் ஸ்ட்ரீக் வந்தது. அதனால இன்னும் மேலே கொண்டு போயிட்டா தனமாலோட லெகசியை. ஸோ in the 20th century, the Dhanam family yielded Brinda and Mukta, a novel singing duo who did a lot of manodharmam and paved the way for women singers to compete in a hitherto man's world. இன்றைக்கி எல்லா லேடிஸும் பாடின்னு இருக்கா, அந்த காலத்துலேருந்தே பாடின்னு இருக்கானா, அதுக்கு பிருந்தா முக்தா தான் ஸ்டேஜில் ஏறி நாங்கள் ராகம், நிரவல், ஸ்வரம், பல்லவி பாடுவோன்னு அவள் ஒரு முன்னோடியாக இருந்தாள். அதுக்கப்புறம் தான் இவாள்லாம் பாட ஆரம்பித்தா. அதாவது மும்மூர்த்திகள், எம்எஸ் அம்மா, டிகேபி, எம்எல்வி அம்மா, அதுக்கப்புறம் நம்ம எல்லோரும் வந்துட்டுருக்கோம். இப்போ போல்டாக வந்து லேடிஸ் நிறைய கச்சேரி பண்ணுறா. இதுக்கு ஒரு டேபுவும் இல்லை. ஆனால் அந்த காலத்தில் முதல்ல டேபு இருந்தது. To compete in a hitherto man's world of top-notch kacheris. Thank you, Brinda and Mukta, for setting the tone for the future emancipation of women artists. And of course, thanks to Bala, whose Shukra Dasha, or great luck, எல்லாத்துக்கும் ஒரு லக் வேணும். அந்த லக் வந்து அந்த பாலாக்கு அடிச்சுது. கிரேட் லக், கடவுளோட புண்ணியம் தான், propelled her as a world artist. இந்தியன் ஆர்டிஸ்ட் மாத்திரம் இல்லை, all over the world. World artist and ambassador of classical dance on the prestigious stages of the outside world. பொட்டி பாம்பாவே இருக்காத, ஒரு குடத்து வழக்காவே இருக்காத அப்படின்னு சொல்லுவாள். குடத்துக்குள்ளே வழக்கை ஏற்றி வச்சா வெளியில் தெரியாது, அது குடத்துக்குள்ளே தானே இருக்கும். அந்த மாதிரி இல்லாமல் ஃபுல்லாக ஒரு உலக பிரகாசமாக இவள் பண்ணினா. அது போல்ட்னஸ், அட்வென்ச்சரஸ்னஸ், போல்ட்னஸ். In Bala's mind, music was uppermost. Her dance interpreted many compositions. Ever restless. ஆர்டிஸ்டே ரெஸ்ட்லெஸ்ஸாக இருப்பாள். இதை பண்ணலாமா, அதை பண்ணலாமா, படுத்துட்டா 4 கோர்வை வரும், 4 ஸ்வரம் வரும், 4 ஐடியா வரும். இந்த டியூனை பாரதியார் அந்த டியூனை மாற்றி வேறு ராகமாக போடலாமா, ஐயோ சரியாகவே நம்ம பண்ணலையே. பக்கத்துலேயே ஒரு நோட் புக் இருக்கும். இந்த நோட் புக்கை ரொம்ப நாள் கழித்து பார்த்தா என்னவோ ஒரு தரு, ஒரு வர்ணம், ஜாவளி, பதம் நான் போட்டு வச்சுருப்பேன். எல்லா ஆர்டிஸ்ட்டும் அப்படி தான். நடுராத்திரி தான் இந்த பக்கம் ராமச்சந்திரன் வந்து கண்டன் நடையில் பல்லவி செட் பண்ணிட்டு இருப்பார், அந்த ஹாஃப் ஆஃப் த பெட். இங்கே நான் சொல்லுவேன், ஏன் தூக்கம் வரலையா, இல்லை நாளானிக்கு எனக்கு கச்சேரி இருக்குது, இதை பாரு, தக்க இது கரெக்டாக வரதா அப்படின்னு சொல்லுவேன். மணி வந்து 2 மணி ஆகுது, காத்தால சொல்கிறேன் அப்படிம்பேன். அதனால் இந்த ஆர்டிஸ்டோட க்ரியேட்டிவிட்டி எப்போ பிளேனில் போகும்போது, ட்ரெயினில் ஏறின உடனே நான் ப்ராக்டிஸ் பண்ண ஆரம்பிச்சுடுவேன். என்னெல்லாம் அந்த பாம்பேயில் அப்போல்லாம் ட்ரெயினில் தானே போவோம், என்ன பாடணும், உடனே நான் வந்து சரி ஃபஸ்ட்டு வந்து கேதாரகுல சாமி தய அதெல்லாம் பாடுவேன். அப்புறம் பக்கத்தில் இருக்கிறவா, நீங்கள் சிங்கரா? அம்மா நான் சிங்கர். என்ன எங்கே போகிறேன்? இல்லை பாம்பேக்கு போகிறேன். என்ன பண்ணுறேன்? இப்போ தான் லிஸ்ட்டு போட்டு ப்ராக்டிஸ் பண்ணிட்டுருக்கேன். ஸோ ஜோக்ஸ் apart, Bala was restless. She was eager to assimilate secrets of music and Abhinaya from Vedantam Garu, other gurus, Thus, with her foundation, she built a new edifice with her own stamp and her own மனோதர்மம். அந்த சொந்த மனோதர்மம் தான் நிலச்சி நிற்கும். எவ்வளோ வேணால் நீ காப்பி பண்ணு, அது ஒரு ஷேடு கம்மியாக வந்துடலாம். நம்மளே அனுபவித்து சுவானுபவமாக உள்ளே பண்ணிட்டு நம்ம அதை வெளியில் கொண்டு வந்து நம்மளோட ஓன் மியூசிக்கோ டான்ஸோ ப்ரெசென்ட் பண்ணால் அதுக்கு ஒரு சபாஷ் வரதான் வரும். பாலாஸ் வாய்ஸ் வாஸ் வெரி ரிச் அண்ட் ஃபாஸ்ட் பேஸ்ட். துளசி தலன்னு ஒரு ரெக்கார்டிங் இருக்குது, நெட்டில் கூட இருக்குது. அதில் வந்து மாயாமலவுகளை நிறைய பிரிகா பாடி, அவள் வாய்ஸ் வந்து ரொம்ப ஃபாஸ்ட் பேஸ்ட் வாய்ஸ் ஆல்சோ. இப்படிலாம் பாடியிருக்கா பாலா, ரொம்ப அட்வென்ச்சரஸாக பாடியிருக்கா. அதனால் அவளுக்கு பிரிகா மேலே அலர்ஜிலாம் கிடையாது. அது லேட்டராக வந்த ஒரு கான்ட்ரவர்சி, அவ்வளோதான். அவள் வந்து பிரிகாவும் பாடுவாள், நல்ல கமக்கம், தசவித கமக்கம், பஞ்சதச கமக்கமே பாடுவாள். She sings brigas with ease. But here, அந்த மாயாமலவுகளிலேயே அப்படின்னு போய் நின்றுடுறா. ஸோ ஒரு ஹிந்துஸ்தானி எஃபெக்டும் அதில் கலந்து வந்துடுது. Slowly and surely, she set about an amalgam of Hindustani and Carnatic. Especially, she adapted Tumris of North India, fused with Gamakas of the South. This is Bala's style, in my opinion. In this, her collaborator was her brother, T. Vishwanathan, a wonderful flautist and her permanent accompanist. For example, my guru was singing one javali. It was in her notebook also. Sanura imohamu சகிம்பகலேனே இந்த ஜாவலி இருந்தது இல்லையா. ஆனால் விஸ்வாவும் பாலாவும் அதை மாற்றி க்ரியேட்டிவாக பண்ணியிருக்கா. அதாவது ஜானரோயி மோஹமு கொஞ்சம் ஹிந்துஸ்தானி மாதிரி பண்ணி கமாஜ் கமாஜ் மிக்ஸ் பண்ணி சகிம்பகலேனே அந்த மாதிரி அவள் ஸ்டைல் கொண்டு போவாள். அதில் ஹிந்துஸ்தானியோட ஆதிக்கம் நல்லா தெரியும். In the same way, Bala and Vishwa ஒரு தோடியில் ஒரு ஜாவலி மோசஜே சேனே வாடு பலு மோசஜே சேனே, அது தோடியில் தான் இருந்தது. கொஞ்ச நாள் கழித்து பார்த்தா இவா சிந்து பைரவியாக மாற்றிட்டா. தோடியில் இருக்கும்போது யாருமே கவனிக்கலை. இவா சிந்து பைரவியில் பண்ணுவோன்னே எல்லாரும் ஐயோ மோசஜேசனே மோசஜேசனே வாடு பலு மோசஜேசனே அப்படியே சிந்து பைரவி அதே ஸ்வரந்தான். கமக்கத்தை எடுத்துட்டு சிந்து பைரவியாக கொடுத்துட்டா. ஸோ அதுதான் ஒரு ஜீனியஸ். சமயோசிதமாக பண்ணணும். சில பேர் சொல்வா ஜிஎன்பி வந்து வாசுதேவயனி எடுப்பை மேலே வச்சு அவர் பெரிய தப்பு பண்ணார்னு சொல்வார். இப்போவும் சொல்கிறா. அப்போ ராமச்சந்திரன் சொல்வார் வாசுதேவயனி பெரிசா மேலே வர ஆரம்பித்ததால ஹிட் சாங்காக ஆயிடுது. வாசுதேவயனி அப்படி இருந்தபோது யாருமே கவனிக்கலை. அதே வந்து இல்லை வாசுதேவயனி அப்படி இருந்திருக்கலாம், யாருக்கு தெரியும். இந்த பெரிய பெரிய எக்ஸ்போனன்ட்ஸ் தான் இந்த டியூனை கொடுத்து இந்த சங்கதியை கொடுத்து ஒரு அரியக்குடியோ செம்மங்குடியோ செம்பையோ ஜிஎன்பியோ எம்எல்வியோ எம்எஸ்ஓ பட்டமாலோ வீணதனமோ அதெல்லாம் உருவம் கொடுத்தது இவா தானே. அவள் பாம் லீவ்ஸில் எழுதி வச்சுட்டு போயிட்டா. அரையும் குறையுமா யாருக்கோ சொல்லி கொடுத்தா. இப்போ நான் 10 ஸ்டூடெண்ட்டுக்கு சொல்லி கொடுத்தா 10 பேர் 10 விதமாக பாடுறா. இப்போ 2018 நடக்கிற கூத்து இது. அப்போ வந்து சரி தில்லைஸ்தானம் அதுதான் கரெக்டு, அதில் சங்கதி கிடையாது. வாலாஜப்பேட்டில் ஏகப்பட்ட சங்கதி இருக்குது. உமையால்புரம் ஸ்டைலில் வந்து 5 சங்கதி இருக்குது. இதை விவாதிக்கவே வேண்டாம். ஏன்னா அந்த பெரிய எக்ஸ்போனன்ட்ஸ் வந்துட்டா நமக்கு. பூச்சி ஐயங்கார் அதுலேருந்து ஆரம்பித்து பட்னம் சுப்பிரமணியர் இவாள்லாம் வந்து அந்த கிருத்திஸ் எல்லாம் அலசி சங்கதிகள் அழகாக போட்டு இப்போ அகிலாண்டேஸ்வரி சேத்தஸ்ரீ செம்மங்குடி மாமா கொண்டு வரலைன்னா அதெல்லாம் எங்கே இருக்கும். இப்போ நம்ம ஹாப்பியாக பாடின்னு இருக்கோம் இல்லையா. அது மாதிரி தான் இப்போ வந்து மை ஹஸ்பண்ட் செட் அருண் பொன்னே மணியே என் அன்பே என் அன்பான அறிவே என் அறிவிலும் ஆனந்த வெள்ளமே என் அறிவில் ஊறும் ஆனந்த வெள்ளமே என்றென்று பாடினேன் ஆடினேன் ராமச்சந்திரன் நேத்திக்கு சொன்னேன், நான் என்னத்தை ஒரு விருத்தம் ஏதாவது சொல்லணும், ஆடினேன் பாடினேன்னு வருது, இதே நீ கொஞ்சோண்டு அவா ஸ்டைலில் கொஞ்சம் ட்ரை பண்ணு அப்படின்னு சொன்னேன். அப்போது அந்த இந்துஸ்தானியே கலந்து அதில் வரும். அரும் பொன்னே மணியே என் அன்பே என் அன்பான அறிவே அன்பான அறிவே. ஒரு மோகனம் எடுத்துட்டா கூட கன்வென்ஷனெல்லாம் இருக்காது அவளோடது. அதில் ஒரு கேர்வ் கொடுப்பா, ஒரு நிதானம் இருக்கும். இப்போ பெஹாக்னு எடுத்துட்டா, என் அறிவில் ஊரும் ஆனந்த வெள்ளமே என்றென்று பாடினேன் பாடினேன். இப்போ எம்எல்வி வந்து பாடினேன் அப்படி பாடியிருக்கலாம். பாலா வந்து பாடினேன் ஆடினேன். ஆனந்த வெள்ளமே என்றென்று அதுக்குள்ளே விஸ்வநாதன் அதில் ஊதுவார். பாடினே அப்படி அவர் வாசிப்பார். ஸோ ரசானுபவம்னா அதுதான். ஸோ இந்த பக்கம் இவள் விஸ்வாவை கேட்குறதா, அவள் ஜெயமாவில் பாடுறவாளை பார்க்குறதா, இல்லை பாலா மைக்கில் பாடுறத பார்க்குறதா, என்னத்தை பார்க்குறது, திண்டாடி போயிடுவோம். பட் ஆனால் என்னென்னா, த எக்ஸாக்ட் ட்ரான்ஸ்லேஷன் ஆஃப் த மியூசிக் இஸ் த டான்ஸ். They know the music very well. They know the dance also very well. She had a very expressive face which Shivaji Ganeshan also admired. சிவாஜி கணேசன் எந்த ரோல் பண்ணாலும் ரொம்ப அழகு. அதே மாதிரி பாலாமா வந்து எந்த நாயிக்கா எடுத்து, கண்டித்த நாயிக்காவா, இல்லை ரொம்ப சோகமாக இருக்காளா, இல்லை வந்து இந்த செப்பரேஷன், இதை எத்தனையோ நாயிக்காக்கள் இருக்கான்னு சொல்கிறா இல்லையா. ஈவன் ஆஸ் அ மேன் கூட ராம பிராணசக்தியில் வந்து ஒரு ஆம்பளையாக வந்து அது ஒரு பதம் தான் வந்து த மேனோட வியூ பாயிண்ட்லேருந்து சொல்கிறா. ஸோ திடீர்னு ஒரு மேன்லியாக வந்து நடந்து வரும்போது ராம பிராணசக்தி அது ஒரு மேன்லியாக வந்து நடந்து வந்து சொல்லுவா. ஸோ ஒரு நிமிஷமும் இப்போ குவிக் சேஞ்ச் ஆஃப் ஆர்டிஸ்ட் மாதிரி இப்போ எப்படி சிவாஜி கணேசன் எந்த ரோல் பண்ணினாலும் அப்படி பொருத்தமாக இருக்குமோ, அதே மாதிரி தான் இப்போ பாலா ஒரு கிரியேட் ஆர்டிஸ்ட், நிறைய ஒரு க்ரியேட்டிவாக பண்ணினா. இந்த க்ரியேட்டிவிட்டியை பார்த்துக்கணும் அப்படின்ட்டு நான் ஃபீல் பண்ணி ஐ ஒன்ஸ் அகெயின் தேங்க் ஃபார் த வண்டர்ஃபுல் ஆப்பர்ச்சுனிட்டி. My pranams to everybody, to all the scholars on the stage, and my namaskaram to everybody. Thank you. Thank you, Srimati Charumati Ramachandran, for that wonderful speech on the musical aspect of Bala's tradition. உன் பிறப்பால் எத்தனை சாதனைகள் செய்தாய் நான் அறியேன். முத்திரை பதித்தாய் பூவுலகு வாழும் வரை, பத்திரமாய் நர்த்தனம் காத்திடவே நந்தினியை புத்திரியாய் ஏற்றுக்கொண்டாய் போலும். Sri Murali of Chennai Fine Arts has sent this message. Thank you, Sri Muralidharan sir. I now request Dr. Madhavi, Head of Department of Music, Tamil University, Tanjavur, to come and offer her tributes to Srimati T. Balasaraswati. Srimati Priyamvada Shankar will now honor Dr. Madhavi.
மேடையில் வீற்றிருக்கும் அறிஞர் பெருமக்களுக்கும், இங்கு வருகை புரிந்திருக்கும் இசை மற்றும் நடனத்துறை சார்ந்த கலைஞர்களுக்கும் மற்றும் உள்ள அனைவருக்கும் முதற்கண் என்னுடைய பணிவான வணக்கத்தை தெரிவித்துக் கொள்கின்றேன். அதாவது டாக்டர் ராகவன் சென்டர் ஆஃப் பர்ஃபார்மிங் ஆர்ட்ஸ் இந்த நிறுவனத்தின் இயக்குனர் டாக்டர் நந்தினி ரமணி அவர்கள் என்னை சந்தித்த பொழுது இந்த லெஜண்டுடைய நூற்றாண்டு விழாவில் கலந்து கொள்ள வேண்டும் என்று எனக்கு ஒரு அன்பான விடுப்பினை அளித்தார்கள். அந்த வகையில் நான் அந்த இனிய விழாவில் பங்கேற்பதில் மிக பெருமையாகவும் மகிழ்ச்சியாகவும், அதாவது என்னுடைய வாழ்நாளில் எனக்கு கிடைத்த ஒரு மிகச்சிறந்த ஒரு மேடையாக நான் எண்ணுகிறேன். எனக்கு அதாவது ரொம்ப நான் பெருமையாக நினைக்கிறது என்னென்னா, தஞ்சை பாலசரஸ்வதி, அந்த தஞ்சாவூர் அப்படின்னா பரதநாட்டியத்தையும் தஞ்சாவூரையும் பிரித்து பார்க்க இயலாத ஒரு ஒன்று. ஏனென்றால் இன்றைக்கு தஞ்சாவூர், அதற்கு அருகில் உள்ள வழுவூர், பந்தரைநல்லூர், திருவிடமருதூர், இப்படி அங்கிருந்து வந்த மிக பெரிய ஜாம்பவான்கள்லாம், நட்டுணர்கள்லாம் நம்ம எல்லோரும் பார்த்துருக்கின்றோம். ஆகையால் தஞ்சாவூரில் வளர்ந்த இந்த ஒரு அருமையான அற்புதமான ஒரு கலையை உலக அளவில் எடுத்து சென்ற பெருமை பாலாம்மா அவர்களையே சாரும். பாலாம்மா அவர்களுக்கு முன்னாடியும் பல நூற்றாண்டுகளுக்கு முன்பாக பல தேவதாசிகள் கோயில்கள்லாம் இருந்ததை நாம் வரலாற்று வழியாக அறிந்திருக்கின்றோம். ஒன்று, பாலாம்மா அவர்களுக்கு பின்பு இருக்கின்ற நடன கலைஞர்களையும் நாம் பார்த்து வருகின்றோம். இருந்தாலும் இந்த துறையில் அவர்கள் தொட்ட இடத்தினை இதுவரை யாரும் தொடவில்லை. நேற்று 2 நாட்களாக அவர்களை பற்றி எல்லோரும் பேசி வருவதை நாம் காதார கேட்கின்றோம். அந்த வகையில் நான் தஞ்சை ஆண்டாளம்மாள் என்கின்ற மிகச்சிறந்த ஒரு நடன ஆசிரியை, கலைஞர், அவருடைய கொள்ளுப்பேத்தி என்று சொல்வதில் மிக பெருமைப்படுகின்றேன். என்னுடைய தந்தையார் நட்டோடார் RS ராஜேந்திரன். என்னுடைய பாட்டி ஆண்டாளம்மாள் பல ஆண்டுகளாக தஞ்சை பெரிய கோவிலில் சரபேந்திர பூபால குரவஞ்சியில் மோகினியாகவும், அவருடைய மகள் விஜயலக்ஷ்மி என்பவர் சகியாகவும் பல ஆண்டு காலம் ஆடியிருக்கின்றார்கள். அந்த வகையில் என்னுடைய பாட்டியை பற்றி அவர் BM சுந்தரம் அவர்கள் நடன கலைஞர்களை பற்றி எழுதிய நூலில் இருக்கின்றார். அவரும் ஒரு மிகச்சிறந்த ஒரு அபிநயம் செய்வதில் வல்லவர் என்று. அவர்கள் அதாவது பாலாம்மா அவர்கள் ஆண்டாளம்மா அவர்களை நன்கு தெரியும். அவர்கள் இந்த 60s 70s தஞ்சாவூருக்கு வரும்பொழுது அவர்கள் இருவரும் சந்தித்து பேசியிருக்கின்றார்கள். அப்படி என்னுடைய குடும்ப வழி செய்தியாக அம்மா அவர்களை பற்றி நான் பல செய்திகளை கேட்டிருக்கின்றேன். 73 74 எனக்கு சரியாக நினைவில்லை. அப்பொழுது தஞ்சை சரஸ்வதி மஹாலில் அம்மா அவர்களுடைய நடன நிகழ்ச்சி நடைபெற்றது. அது அவ்வளோ ரொம்ப சீரியஸாக நான் பார்த்ததாக எனக்கு தெரியவில்லை. என்னோடய தந்தையாருடன் சென்று இருந்தேன். அவ்வளோதான். எனக்கு வேறு அவங்களுடைய ரொம்ப டச் இல்லை. எல்லோரும் அதாவது அபிநயம் என்ற அம்மா பாலாம்மா தான் அப்படின்னு கேட்டிருக்கிறோம். அந்த வகையில் அதாவது இந்த அம்மா பாடி மகள் ஆடி அப்படிங்கிற ஒரு நிலை, அது அவங்க தான் அது ஃபஸ்ட்டாக மேடையேற்றிருக்கிறாங்க. இன்றைக்கு சகோதரிகளாக பாடுவதை நாம் பார்த்து வருகின்றோம், ஆடுவதை பார்க்கின்றோம். பாலாம்மாவுக்கு அப்புறம் MS பாடி ராதா விஸ்வநாதன் ஆடியிருக்கின்றார்கள். அதே போல் MLV அம்மா பாடி அவங்க மகள் ஆடியிருக்கின்றாங்க. இருந்தாலும் அதுக்கெல்லாம் ஒரு ரோல் மாடலாக திகழ்ந்தவர் பாலாம்மா தான். அவங்க இப்போ மேடம் சொன்ன மாதிரி அவங்க வீட்டு சங்கீதம் மிக உயர்ந்தது. பிருந்தாம்மா, முக்தாம்மா அவங்களெல்லாம் அவங்களுடைய இசையெல்லாம் ஒரு அன்ஈக்குவலான ஒரு கச்சேரிகள். என்னுடைய பாட்டி இருவர் லக்ஷ்மி கௌரி என்று மிகச்சிறந்த பாடகி. அவங்க கௌரி அம்மா அவர்களுடைய மகள் கூட இப்போ வந்திருக்கிறாங்க, பூர்ணிமா. அவர்கள் நிறைய சொல்லுவாங்க பாலாம்மாவுடைய டான்ஸு, அவங்களுடைய பாட்டு, அந்த ஒரு காலப்பிரமாணம் என்பது அவர்களுடைய டான்ஸில் தான் பார்க்க முடியும்னு சொல்லிட்டு. அதாவது இன்றைக்கு எப்படி ஒரு வர்ணத்துக்கு எப்படி ஜதி அமைக்கணும், அந்த மாதிரியான ஒரு பேட்டர்ன்ஸ், அந்த முறைகள் தெரியாமல் பலர் இருக்கிறாங்க. இருந்தாலும் அந்த பாவம் எப்படி வருதோ அதுக்கு தகுந்தாப்போல் அங்கே ஜதி அமையணும் அப்படிங்கிற ஒரு சிஸ்டம்லாம் அவங்களுடைய டான்ஸில் தான் நம்ம பார்க்க முடியும். அப்படி ஒரு மிகச்சிறந்த ஒரு கலைஞராக இந்த மண்ணில் வாழ்ந்தவர். அதனால் அந்த தஞ்சாவூரில் இருந்து வந்த ஒரு கலைஞர், அந்த மண்ணில் நான் பிறந்து வளர்ந்து வாழ்ந்து வருகின்றேன் என்று நினைக்கும்போது மிகவும் பெருமையாக இருக்கின்றது. பாலாமா அவருடைய ஃபேமிலி வீணை தினமா எல்லோருக்கும் தெரியும். அவர்கள் ஒரு முறை என்னுடைய பாட்டி ஆண்டாளம்மாள் அவர்களுடைய வீட்டிற்கு வந்து அவருடைய மகள் ராமு என்பவரை, நீ இந்த முறை தியாகபெரும உற்சவத்தில் பாட வேண்டும் என்று கையோடு அழைத்து கொண்டு போய் பாட வைத்தார்களாம். அந்த அளவுக்கு ஒரு மிக நெருக்கமாக எங்களுடன் பழகியவர். நாங்கள் தஞ்சாவூர் தமிழ் பல்கலைக்கழகத்தின் மூலமாக இந்த லெஜெண்டுடைய ஒரு நூற்றாண்டு விழாவினை ஒரு சிறப்பாக கொண்டாட வேண்டும் என்ற ஒரு எண்ணத்தில் அம்மையார் அவர்களை சந்தித்த போது பேசினோம். அப்போது அவர்கள் ஒர்க் ஷாப் ஒன்று கண்டக்ட் பண்ணலாம் என்று சொன்னாங்க. ஏன்னா அவங்க எப்படி ஆடினாங்க, அவங்களோட பாணியை இன்றைக்கி சொல்வதற்கு நம்மளுடைய நந்தினி அக்காவை தவிர இன்றைக்கி வேறு யாரும் இல்லை. அதனால் அவர்களை ஏற்பாடு செய்திருந்தோம். அதாவது அக்டோபர் 30, 31 2 நாட்களும் அது ஒரு இன்டர்நேஷ்னல் ஒர்க் ஷாப்பாக நடத்தினோம். அதுக்கு வந்து இலங்கை, சிங்கப்பூர் போன்ற வெளிநாடுகளிலிருந்து மாணவர்கள்லாம் பங்கேற்றார்கள். மிக அற்புதமாக 2 பதங்களை பயிற்றுவித்தார்கள் அம்மையார் அவர்கள். ஒன்று பால பருவமானாய் என்ற ஒரு பதமும், காம்போதி ராகத்தில் நம்ம இந்த பதறி வருகுது 2 பதமும் மிக அற்புதமாக பயிற்றுவித்தார்கள். அதாவது அந்த சொல்லிக் கொடுக்கும் முறை, அந்த மாதிரியான ஒரு ஸ்டைலெல்லாம் இப்போது நம்ம பார்க்க முடியாது. ஏன்னா ஒரு பதம், ஒரு வர்ணம் அப்படின்னா கிட்டத்தட்ட ஓராண்டு காலமாக கற்றுக்கொள்வார்கள். அப்படி ஒரு பாரம்பரியத்திலேருந்து கற்றுக்கிட்டு வந்த அம்மையார் அவர்கள் அந்த 2 பதங்களையும் மிக அற்புதமாக பாடி, அதாவது இப்போ எல்லோரும் சொன்ன மாதிரி எல்லா நடன கலைஞர்களுக்கும் பாடுவது கடினமாக இருக்கிறது, பாடுறவங்க எல்லாருக்கும் ஆடுறது தெரியாது அப்படிங்கிற ஒரு நிலை இருக்குது. இருந்தாலும் அந்த 2 ஒரு கலையையும் மிகச்சிறப்பாக கையாண்டவர் பாலாமா அவர்கள். அவருடைய பாடலையும் நாம் நிறைய ரெக்கார்ட் கேட்டிருக்கிறோம். அந்த வகையில் அம்மையார் அவர்களுக்கு தஞ்சாவூரில் இருக்கின்ற ஒரு மிகச்சிறந்த நிறுவனம் தமிழ் பல்கலைக்கழகம். அதன் மூலமாக என்ன அஞ்சலி செய்ய வேண்டும் என்று சிந்தித்த பொழுது இது மாதிரி ஒரு ப்ராக்டிக்கலாக ஒரு ஒர்க் ஷாப் கண்டக்ட் பண்ணி அவர்களுடைய பாணியை மற்ற மாணவர்கள்லாம் தெரிந்து கொள்ள வேண்டும் அப்படிங்கிறதுனால இந்த ஒரு சிறப்பான நிகழ்ச்சி ஏற்பாடு செய்தோம். மிக சிறப்பாக அமைந்தது. அம்மையார் அவர்கள் குறிப்பிட்டது போல் ஒரு 65 மாணவர்கள் அதில் பங்கேற்றார்கள். எங்களுடைய துணைவேந்தர் அவருக்கும் மிகவும் ஒரு சந்தோஷம். அதாவது தஞ்சாவூரில் இந்த சென்டினரி துவங்கிறதுக்கு முன்பாக நாம் அவருடைய நினைவு தினத்தை கொண்டாடியதுக்கு அவர் ரொம்ப பெருமைப்பட்டார். நான் அம்மையார் அவரோட பேசிய போது, அதாவது அவங்க ஒரு டான்ஸு கலைஞராக மட்டுமல்லாமல் அவர்களை ஒரு ஆய்வுத்துறையில் ஈடுபடுத்தியவர் டாக்டர் வி. ராகவன் ஐயா அவர்கள். இன்றைக்கு ராகவன் ஐயா அவர்கள் எழுதிய இந்த நூல்கள் தான் நாங்கள் எல்லோரும் எம்ஃபில், பிஹெச்டி, எம்ஏ, இசையாகட்டும் நடனமாகட்டும் அந்த துறையில் பயில்வதற்கு ஒரு ஆதாரமான நூல்களாக திகழ்கின்றன. ஐயா அவர்களை பற்றி எல்லோருக்கும் தெரியும். அவர்கள் சமஸ்கிருதம், தமிழ், தெலுங்கு ஆகிய அனைத்து மொழிகளிலும் புலமை வாய்ந்தவர். நான் அம்மையார் அவர்கள் மியூசிக் அகாடமியில் அவர்கள் பேசிய உரையை நிறைய படிச்சிருக்கின்றேன். அவர்கள் எழுதிய நூல்களையும் நிறைய வாசிக்கிறதுக்கு எனக்கு வாய்ப்பு இருந்தது. அந்த வகையில் அவர் பரதநாட்டியம் என்ற நூலில் அவர் குறிப்பிட்டிருக்கின்ற, அதாவது கோயில் அமைப்பினை அந்த நடன மார்க்கத்தோடு அவர் தொடர்பு படுத்தி, அதாவது அலாரிப்பு ஜதீஸ்வரம் சப்தம் வர்ணம் பதம் தில்லானா என்ற அந்த மார்க்கத்தை அந்த கோயில் நிலைகளோடு ஒப்பிட்டு அவர் எழுதிய ஒரு பாங்கு, அதாவது அந்த ரிசர்ச் ஐடியா, அது யாருக்குமே, அதாவது நம்ம படித்தோன்னே ரொம்ப ஒரு டச்சிங்காக இருக்கும். அந்த ஒரு ஐடியாங்கிறது ரொம்ப ஒரு அற்புதமான ஒரு ஐடியா. அந்த நூலில் அதை குறிப்பிட்டிருக்கின்றார். அந்த மாதிரியான அவருக்கு ஒரு இந்த துறையில் ஒரு ஆய்வு நூலாக எழுதுவதற்கு உறுதுணையாக இருந்தவர் நம்மளுடைய டாக்டர் வி. ராகவன் ஐயா அவர்கள்தான். அவருடைய அத்துணை ஒரு சிறப்புக்கும் உடனிருந்து அவர்களை இன்றைக்கு உலக அளவில் ஒரு மிகச்சிறந்த ஒரு கலைஞராக திகழ்வதற்கு காரணமாக இருந்தவர் ஐயா அவர்கள். அவர்களுடைய நிறுவனத்தின் மூலமாக இந்த நூற்றாண்டு விழா நடைபெறுவது எல்லோருக்கும் ஒரு மட்டற்ற மகிழ்ச்சி. இதை ஆண்டுதோறும் மிக சிறப்பாக கொண்டாட வேண்டும். அதற்கு தஞ்சாவூர் தமிழ் பல்கலைக்கழகத்தின் வாயிலாக நாங்கள் என்ன உதவி செய்ய வேண்டும் என்று நந்தினி அக்கா அவர்கள் என்னிடம் சொன்னால் கட்டாயமாக அதை நிறைவேற்றுவோம். ஏனென்றால் அவர்கள் நிறைய நூல்கள் இயற்றியுள்ளார்கள். பாலாமாவை பற்றி, அவர்களுடைய நடனத்தை பற்றி எல்லாம். இருந்தாலும் நான் அவர்கள் சொன்னேன், நாம் இருவரும் இணைந்து ஏதாவது வெளிவராத நூல்களை தமிழ் பல்கலைக்கழக பப்ளிகேஷனாக கொண்டு வரலாம் அப்படின்னு நான் சொன்னேன் அம்மையார் அவர்கள்ட்ட. அதனால் ஏன்னா இன்றைக்கி பாலாமா அவர்கள் இல்லாவிட்டாலும் அவர்கள் எழுதிய நூல்கள் இன்றைக்கு இந்த மண்ணுள்ளளவும் விண்ணுள்ளளவும் இந்த உலகம் உள்ள அளவும் பேசும். அவருடைய பெருமையையும் எல்லோரும் உணர்வோம். அந்த வகையில் நம்முடைய எதிர்கால சந்ததியினர் இப்படிப்பட்ட ஒரு லெஜண்ட் இந்த தமிழகத்தில் பிறந்து இந்த துறைக்கு இவ்வளோ ஒரு சாதனை படைத்துள்ளார்கள் என்பதை அனைவரும் அறியும் வகையில் நாம் ஆய்வாளர்கள், இந்த துறை சார்ந்த நடன கலைஞர்கள் எல்லோரும் இணைந்து செயல்பட வேண்டும். எத்தனை முறை அவர்களை பற்றி செய்திகள் கேட்டாலும் அது நமக்கு புதிதாக தான் இருக்கின்றது. நேத்திலேருந்து அவர்கள் பாலாமாவுடைய அனுபவங்களை எல்லோரும் கூறுகின்றார்கள். ஏன்னா அவர்கள் சென்னையில் தான் மிக அதிகமாக வாழ்ந்தார்கள். தஞ்சை பகுதியெல்லாம் அவர் ரொம்ப வந்ததில்லை. அப்படிங்கிறப்ப அதனால் சென்னையில் இருந்த அவர்களோடு பழகிய எல்லோருக்கும் அவர்களை பற்றி நன்றாக தெரியும். அந்த வகையில் அவர்கள் எல்லோரும் பகிர்ந்துகிட்ட செய்திகள்லாம் ரொம்ப அற்புதமான ஒரு நினைவுகளாக இருந்தது. அந்த வகையில் வருங்காலங்களிலும் இந்த நிகழ்வுகள் மிகச்சிறப்பாக நடைபெற வேண்டும். அதற்கு நாம் அனைவரும் அதன் மூலமாக அவருக்கு ஆண்டுதோறும் நம்மளுடைய அஞ்சலியை செலுத்த வேண்டும் என்று கூறி, இந்த ஒரு நல்ல ஒரு வாய்ப்பினை அளித்த நந்தினி அக்கா அவர்களுக்கு என்னுடைய நெஞ்சார்ந்த நன்றியை தெரிவித்துக் கொள்கின்றேன். அவருடைய குடும்பத்தாருக்கும் என்னுடைய நன்றியை தெரிவித்துக் கொள்கின்றேன். நன்றி, வணக்கம்.
மிக்க நன்றி முனைவர் மாதவி அவர்களுக்கு. ஒரு விஷயத்தை இங்கே சொல்ல வேண்டியிருக்கிறது. பாலசரஸ்வதியின் பாணியை பற்றிய பரதநாட்டிய நூலை பற்றி குறிப்பிட்டார். அதை ஆங்கிலத்தில் நான் மொழிபெயர்த்திருக்கிறேன். நான் இப்போ சமீப காலமாக 20 வருஷமாக டான்ஸர்ஸ் நிறைய பேருக்கு தமிழே தெரியறதில்ல. நான் எதாவது சொல்லிக் கொடுத்தா பதத்தை கூட அவள் இங்கிலீஷில் எழுதிக்கிறாள். அதனால் அது கம்ப்ளீட்டாக ட்ரான்ஸ்லேஷன் இருக்குது ஒன்று. ரெண்டாவது, இந்த லேட்டஸ்ட் இஷ்யூ Shruti has done a great service by bringing lot of the entire book is on Bala almost, and there is translation of important statements on dance and music and various things by Bala has been translated by S. Guhan IAS many years ago. That has been included as part of the present issue. I would like all the younger generation, I'm promoting Shruti copy because I'm a senior associate there. You can all buy a copy and read it. Thank you.
Our next topic for discussion this morning is Bala's global legacy. I kindly invite Dr. Avanti Meduri, Reader, Department of Dance Studies, Roehampton University, UK, to present her lecture on Bala's global legacy. Srimati Priyamvada Shankar will honor Dr. Avanti Meduri.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Namaskaram to all of you. Firstly, I want to thank Nandini Akka for giving me this opportunity to be here with you and participate in this extraordinary event that both remembers and commemorates the grand legacy of Balasaraswati. I am honored to be included in this extended, eminent family gathering today. And as appropriately titled by Nandini Akka, this is really a Smriti Lahari, an overflow of memory. So I was just telling Chandrasekhar sir, what am I going to do here? You know, I have no such memory to share with you. And my words could, in fact, rupture, you know, this wonderful, magical energy, synergy, rasa, that was happening and continues to be happening here just now in this room as people come and go. But I was thinking after Gauri spoke and then Charumati that I should decline and simply bow out. But since you are all here, still, I'm going to brave it and speak in this half. You know, I'm a Chennai girl, really. I lived in Adyar. I went to Holy Angels Convent. I studied in Stella. I learned music and dance here. And today now I'm in the Imperial City of London and I teach there dance studies, Indian global dance studies. So, but that's a story for another time. But today is this story, this global story of which in some little way I am a part of, or could say it this way, that I am because of this global history. Yeah. So here we go. My hands are shaking. So when did this all begin? It all began with Shruti, really. In the 1980s and 1990s, this is how I teach all of this history to students like Divya, who are here now in the audience, and others. It all began there, then, in that moment when Balasaraswati and her other Rukmini Devi passed away. That was the grand years, the lost years, the long years of the 1980s. And Shruti did the last articles, I think, on both these renowned figures who are because of the other, you see, inextricably bound to each other. And the legacy of Bharatanatyam is because they are together in this way. And Anandi Ramachandran did the last interviews, I think, with Balama and captured that moment. I don't know who gave that title. The whole world in her hands. Huh? She did. Brilliant. And I thought I could even I was writing my lecture on the 9-hour flight to here. So I was thinking I could just spin off the whole global legacy history from that title, but I'm not going to do that. But then Gauri, her daughter, followed it up with Rukmini Devi's story and her legacy, and that was the quest for beauty. So these two seminal articles capturing a grand legacy in its last moment in the 1980s, just before they died. My mouth is parched. So, and then I used that to build my critical beginning studies, my dissertation really, which focused on the transnational traditions of Bharatanatyam, primarily on Bala and Rukmini Devi, but also all the others. They're all intertwined. Uday Shankar, Ruth St. Denis, and Pavlova. I finished my dissertation. Took me a long time. I did all my ethnography here in India with all of with all of, yeah. I finished my doctorate at the Tisch School of the Arts, New York University in 1996. I also adapted my doctoral thesis into a play. We're not going to go into that now. So my goal when I was writing the dissertation was to break out of the narrow framework of Indian nationalism and regionalism within which we have been thinking about Indian dance, and to think about the global history of Bharatanatyam through the two figures, Bala and Rukmini Devi. My desire was to articulate a transnational and global history paradigm for the study and research of Bharatanatyam and Indian classical forms. Why do we need a global history? அப்படின்னு நீங்க கேட்கலாம். She's one of us. She was our backdoor woman. But Bharatanatyam's history, or the history of Carnatic music even, is intricately intertwined with the history of colonialism, you see, and what we call the long 19th century. I promise you, I'm not going to do a history lesson, right? It's all linked way back to the long 19th century, to Macaulay's minute, English Education Minute. It's linked to Macaulay's Penal Code, yeah? So we have no choice but to think our local histories of Bharatanatyam and Carnatic music even within a global framework. But we haven't begun to do that yet. So I wanted to think the global history, and it's easy to do that in the case of Balasaraswati because many of you do know that beginning in the 1960s, she regularly held residencies in the United States, at the Wesleyan University, at UCLA where I taught. In the 1960s, when she went out to the US, Merce Cunningham saw her performance, as did Martha Graham, and they were overwhelmed. So one of the sort of questions that then we need to ask ourselves if we are doing critically thinking about this legacy, and that is that what exactly did Merce Cunningham and Martha Graham see in Balasaraswati's dance? Why did they say they suddenly saw divinity in her hands? So to sort of think this response of the Western world, America, to Bala's performance, and Bala didn't just go one semester. She went right through beginning 1960s until the very end. She had residencies in the United States. So America and Bala, that legacy is huge. So to think this large legacy, we'll have to think about Balasaraswati as a traveling woman, and Bharatanatyam itself as a traveling legacy. And this legacy was traveling not just with Balasaraswati in the 1960s, but 5 Devadasis went out to Europe in 1838. Much before anybody else went, and they danced in theaters in Europe. So there is that other commemoration, you see. So 1838 is the first Devadasis who go out to America, and then in 1960, Bala is sent out by the Indian government. So there's the whole history of another kind of memory, you know, that is at play, in play with in terms of the state itself. I mean, we have a memory here. This is our community memory. It's our collective memory. But the state also, you see, was nurturing that kind of memory. And so that blank slide is that I'm going to go to a new point. In the last decade, we are beginning to have, which we didn't have before, rich biographies of pioneering musicians and dancers. Pre-1980s, when I was doing my dissertation and doing the research for it, we had anecdotes. We had sketches, biographical sketches And the same story would be retold in another way, same, again and again. That's how memory is built. So I had only sketches, and then I had these articles that Gauri and Anandi did at the end. And then in 2005, we are beginning to see biographies of this family itself, this great family with Kamakshi Ammal, and then with Veena, Lakshmi Subramaniam has written about her. And then more recently, we have Douglas Knight's biography of Bala, right? Son-in-law of Balasaraswati. This is a very good biography. He interweaves the local and the global histories in complex and new ways. So it's not an old Balasaraswati, our own Balasaraswati, regional, Tamil, Tanjavur, Madras, now Chennai, not that history, but he did cast it already in a global framework. Now, so we have these rich biographies. I pore over them, I read them, and then I say that the more I read, the more information I get about Bala and or Veena, the less I know about them as women and as artists, right? And I think I missed a slide, didn't I? But doesn't matter. So they're inscrutable. Bala still remains inscrutable as a woman. And unknowable, enigmatic, a pregnant silence. Information, memory, but yet a silence about who she is. That's what I read. And that's what Lakshmi read in Veena Dhanam's biography as well. That something about them, and Rukmini Devi said that too, we cannot get it. We cannot capture this except as a flash. So I ask myself, and put it to you, ask you why it is that she remains inscrutable, or does she? It's my postulate. Inscrutable as a woman. And I think it is because Bala stood as a historical figure at the intersection of multiple macro histories. The histories of colonialism, regionalism, anti-colonial nationalism, decolonization, Cold War, restructuring of the world in the 70s, leading to neoliberal globalization of the 1980s when she passed away. So she stood at that intersection of macro histories, and she carried the burden of those histories, even as Bala, I would say, negotiated those histories, those macro histories. So I think you get my point, right? Bala negotiated with the global politics of these macro histories until the very end of her life. And because Bala negotiated with all these large histories creatively, and without losing the core of her paramparic tradition, she stands as example and inspiration to us all today. How did Bala resist the tide of globalization? How did she safeguard the inner core and root of her paramparic traditions, even as she negotiated the changing imperatives of patronage? You know, her biggest patron was Louis Scripps, right? And we don't talk about it. She negotiated that patronage. She negotiated the patronage of the state and retained her core. And the patronage allowed her to retain that core. So the questions then are something like this. Did Bala teach her students in India and abroad in the same traditional manner of the Guru-Shishya system that she propagated here? Although we've heard today that she didn't like to be called a guru. How did Bala teach Sringara Bhakti to her American students? You see? Do you see what I'm saying? Milton Singer, the great anthropologist, he took Bharatanatyam, among other things, as a case study. And he wrote a book, the title of which, and he was a great friend of Raghavan. In fact, Raghavan pointed him to Bala and the family. You see, he was the pointer. He was the policeman who directed people to, yes, and that's how somebody has written about him. He's safeguarded by policing the sources. So he directed Milton to go to Bala, and Bala's legacy is significantly there in that book, The Anthropology. The book is titled, When a Great Tradition Modernizes. So I would spin it, and then I would say, we'll have to rethink that title and say, when a great tradition modernizes, and he was talking about India. So today I would ask, how does a great tradition transnationalize? Right? A great tradition modernizes, a great tradition transnationalizes, and that is what Bala did. She transnationalized the tradition. So how does transnationalism of a great tradition like that happen? What is lost? What is gained? How did she negotiate that? That's another secret of Bala's legacy. Right? So I'm coming to the end. It is my hope that in this year of the centenary celebration, we will address questions around the globality of Bala's legacy. We can do this by focusing on Bala's transnational classroom. The classroom that we don't talk about in Indian dance history, Bala's international classroom. That classroom is crucial because the transnationalism of her legacy was seeded here in those classrooms, multiple classrooms, year after year, for almost 25 years. That is how the tradition transnationalized, in the scattering of the seeds in the classroom, the transnational classroom. Yet these classrooms, which were such a big part of her life, her material life, have not had a place of priority in Indian dance history and scholarship. And where's Ashish? We'll need to think those questions now. What is happening in those translations? What is happening in those transmissions, transnational transmissions? Bala's transnational classroom is useful to think with, as it enables us to step outside of the narrow framework of identity politics in which we think so much of our scholarship today. Brahmin versus non-Brahmin, Rukmini Devi versus Balasaraswati, elites versus subalterns, Devadasi disenfranchisement, and Brahmin appropriation. So if we focus on this transnationalism, this classroom, and her global legacy, perhaps we will break out of this parochialism, this chatter around a grand legacy that indeed exceeded geographical boundaries. The new focus on Balasaraswati's transnational classroom, I'm thinking, might help us move Indian dance studies itself in new directions, and to embrace dance philosophy, dance history, phenomenology, and aesthetics. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Avanti. It's my great pleasure to invite Sri Ashish Kokar, art historian, writer, and art critic, to present his speech on Bala in Mohan Kokar's archives. Sri R. Kalidas will now come over to the dais to honor Sri Ashish Kokar.
Om Saraswati Namaha. Pranams to all gurus, gunijans, gyanis. I'm sure there's one or two Brahma Gyani too. After such a nice discourse, it leaves me wondering how important words are and the importance of words in transmitting whatever traditional knowledges are. Osho, the great guru, a philosopher, was once asked, looking at a centipede, as I was just walking up the steps, I saw a centipede which has 100 legs. Which leg do you use first? So if you have 100 legs, which one do you put first? Which one goes second? Which comes 54th and then 56th? And this centipede, after listening to this question, could not walk. So often we have these definitions in dance, in studies, worldwide, some jargon, some very important directions, and yet as a percussor, as a continuity of paramparic traditions, we depend on what is in the air. Literally, arts and spirituality is a state of being. It is in the air. It is in the air in Madras. It is not in the air in Delhi. Films and such culture is in the air and fashion in Bombay. It is not in Trichy. So it's in the air. Some of these things are in the air. And we can only partake of these as much as is our own ability or capacity. Before good manners desert me, and they always do, I must thank Nandini Akka. She called me Tambi. Actually, I'm Tambi to most because my birthday comes once in 4 years. So I'm only 13 and a half. I will be 14 in 2020. So I'm Tambi to most. Some fondly call me Anna, which is also welcome. But in terms of knowledge, in terms of understanding, we are just a mere continuity of what all our parents, our gurus, our seniors, our elders, some of whom are sitting here, have blessed us with, guided us with, and gifted us with. Today, I'll be sharing with you, as a good Punjabi, I speak from my heart. As a good Tamilian, I write from my head. Please clap. It is Nijima, it is true. You know, when I speak, I have no notes. I have no idea how I'll be inspired or not inspired. I just don't know. I have a vague idea, and something always, there's a divine intervention like that centipede. He gave me an idea that if you can dance and move with 100 legs, what's two? What's few between friends? So sometimes discourse should not bound in these parameters of definitions, in bounds of these structures and parameters, because ultimately dance is divine art. At least we believe so, and we continue to believe so, and we think we will continue to believe so, because it is truly God's gift. We could have been butchers or bankers. Both make money, dancers don't. But we are not. Really, how hard is this profession? Only those who are involved with it totally will realize it. It is not a profession. It is not a passion, because after a certain age, passion runs out. It is God's gift and your dharma to do this karma. There is no other word for dance and music or any fine arts which we go through. I have always been at the receiving end. Your claps now, but at New Delhi railway station, when often artists came to the winter of Delhi in 1960s or 70s, especially great artists like these, or Uday Shankar, Ram Gopal, Bala Amma, anyone, Guru Gopinath, I was sent to the station. Those days there were very few flights and unaffordable. I was often sent to the station to receive them with a shawl, hot thermos of tea or coffee, and to say all the right things so not to annoy them, having landed in a very cold, wintry Delhi, to perform in some odd hall with most North Indians not understanding a word of what they were doing anyway. I'm talking of the 60s and 70s. Now Delhi is a bigger village. So when you met these people at station, getting down with their bags, we had hold alls those days, if you remember. All the, blanket and things were packed in that. And we had many trunks, not bags and trolleys, to fight with the coolie or do it yourself. My father taught me the hard way. He said, go fetch them, learn from them, in the half an hour you will be with them. So their actual real character and self came out in those half an hour, 1 hour, because those were the worst times. They were not on stage. They were on stage of life one learned from. So So if somebody said something innocently, you knew how deep their character was, how deep their thought was, how deep their concern for money or material wealth or name or fame was. So I'm privy to so much information. And unfortunately for me, I'm also blessed with a photo memory. So I remember who was wearing what, which day, why, and when. So helps me when I reconstruct history with evidence, which I'll show you. Some of which, of course, Nandini Akka has raised your expectation. She just told me this 3 months ago. In 3 months, looking for one artist in 70 trunks of 500 artists, no matter how important this one is and critical to our understanding of this whole change, it is like looking not for a needle in a haystack. It is for looking for a particle of dust in all the sand by which my mother lives in Palwakam Beach. So I had to literally hunt and find whatever I could come across. Some rare snippets, some original books which are no more under print, some essays and things translated from Dr. Raghavan's writing in French, in publications abroad. So I bring to you whatever I could lay my hands on, but I promise to you at the next year's event or whenever you do this, I will have a lot more material, because finally I see some end at the light of the tunnel of organizing all this material. I won't disclose how and why yet. But I need 2 or 3 volunteers to help me. In each city, announce this. All dancers just want to be famous now. They don't want to learn anything new. They want to be on Facebook and not do real books. They want to be photographed in a jiffy and put to the whole world that I was with this one and that one yesterday. I dined here and I did this, as if it concerns the real world at all. Believe me, no one is interested in this trivial information. You may think you are reaching out to the world, but youngsters, that time, please use reading a book, watching a film on Bala Amma, watching a film on all the greats. It's more important than all this trivia. We are so surrounded with the deluge of digital age information. You see, earlier there were no diversions. You just learned, There was just no diversion. There was no television even. So as it is, we have an idiot box at home with million channels. Then you have it on your cell phone now. So where does it leave you with any repose or understanding or absorption of any finer thing in life? So please think before you want to become famous and stars, because you're too many of now. There was only one Bala Amma and will remain one Bala Amma. There'll not be any other person matching up to that stature. So this, Nandini Akka and your sister Priyamoda ji and all Kalidas ji and the family, you have done a benchmark event and milestone which will always be quoted in future historically, just like we quote 1984 for modern dance, the East-West encounter, or we quote something else, the 1955 National Dance Festival or 58 seminar. This for Bala Amma is a turning point, for a legacy and for a memory and for what you're. Thank you. I will share with you a short 10-minute film I have compiled with materials taken from the MKTC, which is how Mohan Koka Dance Collection is known in brevity. And after that, I will take you to 2-3 points which I'll elaborate on from the text, because I'm keeping an eye also on the watch. I know better late than never, but we'll partake of this. So I made specially for this occasion, so the card is very much there. It was specially done for you, Nandini Akka and family. Sound, please, little. This is not the best hall because it's not darkened, but we'll make good of a bad situation. She was actually beyond labels. That's important. This is amongst the first annuals done in India, called the 4 Arts Annual, much before Times of India. It's 1938, as you can see, dated. And these are the first, 1936 and 37. These are the first few records in Mohan Koka Dance Collection, which actually has a photo of Bala Amma. It has a sketch on her by an artist. So it is the first records, even in printed words, much before the mainstream media projected her in North and West India. This is by Dr. Raghavan, of course. It is from a book which has been published in France. I'll surely give you a good copy. I compressed some of these to fit the 10-minute time given. Otherwise, each line could have been elaborated. But you see how each sequential pose and item was actually depicted in these journals of that period. So you had a whole Abhinaya sequence, step by step and word by word is described in some of these materials, which are in the Mohan Kokar dance collection. And it is just our good luck that I found them in a jiffy just at random search of last 3 months. So it was just God's gift or Mohanji's wishing us well that it was easily found in those 70 trunks I have inherited. At closer examination, some of these papers, you will actually see each line has been translated, how the padam has been done, what is the subtext to it, and this notation was done abroad. Let me tell you, the discipline of research and notation as West has got is rare. We have to learn lots from that. We can take a film on our cell phone today, a photo, but those days to think of even taking a photo of somebody was a very, very expensive proposition. Again, a very important book, New York, 1953. It is one of the books which are now rare books and antiquities, in which the whole structure of how an item and nritta, and as we were speaking earlier, is divided and what are its components is very, very clinically and in a very detailed manner elaborated upon. These are important reference materials. Young students writing PhDs or even articles or dissertations must avail. As proof, history demands proof. It's proof of what happened when Balamma performed as the only Bharatanatyam artist representing India in the first National Dance Festival in 1950 in Delhi, with Shambhu Maharajji also taking to Kathak at the 1958, where they both then interacted. It is true, a film and a photo cannot do justice to an artist, especially of her stature. This is from the 1955 National Dance Festival brochure. Sangeet Natak Academy was spelt like this, Akademi, the literal Hindi translation to English. When she was awarded, I'm sure this is a rare because this is the original award given to her when she got the award the same year as Uday Shankarji was made a fellow. Alauddin Khan Saab got an award. Shambhu Maharajji got this Academy Award. So as proof, we have this document from the original papers and program notes. Articles in her in national press. We are going out of comfort zone of South India, which is the natural habitat for this form. But how Bombay responded, how Illustrated Weekly, how Femina, how other magazines, Eve's Weekly of that period, many others responded to that movement, and how even music critics like Subaru wrote then about dance and became dance writers. Some of it is a very candid photographs. It's a rare poster again, Lakshmi, who is no more with us. Louise, somebody just mentioned her, Avanti, as a patroness in America and positioning her art and becoming the state support. The whole world in her hands indeed. This is keeping the time frame in mind, but two important points I'd like to share. One, last week, this time, I was in Pune at the National Film Archives, and they were talking of Blu-ray while I was talking of Satyajit Ray. And I was mentioning Balama's film, which had been, to most dancers, an anomaly of how not to make a dance film. And the story behind how Balama came on a bus from Kanchipuram, all that cannot be even told, and that the great maestro did not even give her time to comb properly or be ready for the film shoot and do it in the desert beach outside Madras, itself bears history of how one film director controls the medium of another art form sometimes, because film is a very final medium. Two, second point is that we think of documentaries. We know documentaries are about an art, a person, a form, or a place. But documentation of dance becomes a totality. You have to think of evidence in press, in program brochures, in posters, in recorded word, in every form which is there, letters, memorabilia, whatever you have, which is why my father's madness has been passed on to me. Thank you, Nandri.
Thank you all. Thanks to all the speakers. இன்னைக்கு பேசினதில் நிறைய விஷயத்துக்கு பதில் சொல்கிறதுக்கு பிரியமதாக்கம் எனக்கு இருக்குது. கௌரி சொன்ன மாதிரி இந்த ரிவ்யூஸ் ஆஃப் ஸ்ரீ கல்கி அப்பா 1938 சவுண்ட் அண்ட் ஷேடோவில் நிறைய எழுதியிருக்கார். இன்ஃபேக்ட் ஒரு ரிவ்யூவில் பாலாக்கு நிறுத்தம் நன்னா இருக்குது, அபிநயமே இல்லைன்னு சரியாக இம்ப்ரூவ் பண்ணணும்னு எழுதியிருக்கார். அது மாதிரி நிறைய விஷயம் இருக்குது. அது மாதிரி சிருங்காரத்தை எப்படி சொல்லிக் கொடுத்த அமெரிக்கன் ஸ்டூடெண்ட்ஸ்க்கு, வாட் வாஸ் த டீச்சிங் மோட் ஃபார் தி இந்தியன் அண்ட் தி அமெரிக்கன் ஸ்டூடெண்ட் பை பாலா, இதெல்லாம் நிறைய பேசி டிஸ்கஸ் பண்ணுறதுக்கு இருக்குது. அஃப்கோர்ஸ் ஆஷிஷோட ஒரு வண்டர்ஃபுல் ஸ்பீச் and the way he has meticulously, I'm sure there is a lot more. It's not easy. அதில் தேடி எடுக்கிறதுங்கிறது ரொம்ப கஷ்டமான காரியம். பார்த்ததுக்கே நமக்கு ரொம்ப இன்ஸ்பைரிங்காக இருக்குது. We look forward. Valediction போது I hope, because we are going to have several kinds of events during this 1 year up till next February. I want to conclude, and then I request Ashish already to bring something bigger and in more detail, so that we can all have a wholesome view of what was there in Mohan Kokar's archives about the great legend. I thank you all for being here, to all the Rasikas and Vidwans, Vidushis, Natyacharyas and others. Yes, I know you are going to ask so many questions. I have seen you. Please wait. There is not much time because we started a little late and then we had to do a lot of things in between. There is a session in the evening which has to start by 5:30, and there are 12 dancers, including Premada and myself, to dance. So please restrict the questions just for 5 minutes, whoever wants to ask, and then after that, we can all disperse. I expect you all to be there in the Bharatiya Vidya Bhavan. Please don't get mixed up with the venues. The evening program is in Bharatiya Vidya Bhavan, starting at 5:30, because Srimati Vaijayanti Malabali has another commitment, so she will arrive early and then leave early. Please be there. Now to the questions. Please be very brief. Some of the experts are still here. If they want, they can answer it. What is the impact, A. Bhupalan, Mr. A. Bhupalan, what is the impact of folk dance and folk music on Balasaraswati's dance? Who is going to answer this? Whom are you asking? Who is Bhupalan? General question. Yeah, this is purely on the art and legacy of Bala. I don't want to compare and contrast and go into detail into another art form or another trend of music genre. We'll keep it for another session. Thank you all. See you all in the evening. Unless any students have any specific questions. Yeah. Thank you. Thanks to all the experts for their wonderful participation, and scholars who have come all the way. I forgot to mention Avanti is also a Bharatanatyam and Kuchipudi exponent and granddaughter of the great Prakasham, Sri Prakasham, who was a very important Chief Madras in Andhra Pradesh. Just want to thank Mr. A. Chidambaram of Natyanjali Trust, who has come all the way for the...
வணக்கம். அதாவது என்ன சில பேருக்கு தெரிஞ்சிருக்கும், பல பேருக்கு தெரிஞ்சிருக்காது. நான் சிதம்பரத்துலேருந்து வரேன். நாட்டியாஞ்சலியை 37வது ஆண்டாக இந்த ஆண்டு நடத்தி கொண்டு இருக்கிறோம். எல்லா நாட்டிய கலைஞர்களுடைய ஒத்துழைப்போடு அது சிறப்பாக நடந்துகிட்டு இருக்கு. இந்த சந்தர்ப்பத்தில் 2 விஷயத்தை நான் சொல்லிக்கொள்ள விரும்புகிறேன். இத்தகைய ஒரு விழா நடக்கும்பொழுது கலந்து கொள்வதில் உண்மையிலே எனக்கு நெஞ்சார்ந்த மகிழ்ச்சி. ஏன்னா இந்த நாட்டியாஞ்சலிக்கு நிறைய கலைஞர்கள் அப்ளிகேஷன் அனுப்புவாங்க, ஆனால் குரு யாருங்கிறது பெயர் கூட போட மாட்டாங்க. அப்படி இருக்குது இன்றைக்கு. ஆனால் இன்றைக்கு தான் கற்றுக்கொண்ட அந்த குருவிடம் தான் பாடம் பயின்ற குருவை இன்றைக்கும் நினைத்து கொண்டு 100ஆண்டு விழா கொண்டாடி கொண்டு இருக்கிறார்களே அந்த 2 பேர். அவங்கள உண்மையிலேயே பாராட்டணும் அப்படிங்கிறதுக்கு தான் இங்கே வந்தேன். 2வது செய்தி, நாட்டியத்து மேலே நான் ஒரு ரசிகன் தான். ஐ எம் நாட் அன் ஆர்ட் ஸ்காலர். 8 பேர் பேசினாங்க. ஒருத்தர் பேசி முடித்தவுடனே அடுத்தவங்களுக்கு பேசுகிறதுக்கு என்ன விஷயம் இருக்குன்னு நினச்சி சந்தேகப்பட்டுக்கிட்டு இருந்தேன். ஆனால் அடுத்தவங்களுடைய பேச்சு அதிலிருந்து மாறுபட்டு வேறு ஒரு ஆஸ்பெக்டில் இருந்தது. அதுக்கு அடுத்தவர் என்ன பேச போகிறாருன்னு பார்க்கும் பொழுது அது இன்னொரு விதமாக இருந்தது. இப்படி பாலாவை பற்றிய ஒரு ஆர்கைவல் டீட்டெயில்ஸ், ஹிஸ்டாரிக்கல் டீட்டெயில்ஸ், மியூசிக்காலிட்டி, அவங்களுடைய பாவம், அபிநயம் ஒவ்வொன்றையும் பார்க்கும்போது ஒரு அறுசுவை விருந்து அல்ல, இப்போ ஒரு எண் சுவை விருந்து. 8 பேர் கொடுத்த ஒரு 8 சுவையான விருந்தை உண்ட ஒரு மகிழ்ச்சி இன்றைக்கு நமக்கு ஏற்பட்டிருக்கிறது. 3வதாக பாலாவை பற்றி சொல்லும்பொழுது, ஜெயம்மாளை பற்றி சொல்லும்பொழுது, பல ஆண்டுகளுக்கு முன்பு சுருத்தியில் ஒரு சின்ன கட்டுரை வந்திருந்தது. விலாயத் கான் பற்றி, பண்டிட் விலாயத் கான் சித்தார் மேஸ்ட்ரோவை பற்றி. அவர், ஜெயம்மா, பாலசரஸ்வதி, விலாயத் கானுடைய ஃபாதர் இவங்கள்லாம் இருக்கிற பொழுது ஜெயம்மா பாட, விலாயத் கானும் சித்தார் வாசிக்க பாலா ஒரு சின்ன அபிநயம் பண்ணாங்க. அப்போ எப்படி இருந்ததுன்னு விலாயத் கான் சொல்லும்பொழுது அதை கேட்கும்பொழுதும் பார்க்கும்பொழுது எனக்கு அந்த இடமே மஞ்சள் நிறமாக இருந்தது அப்படின்னு சொல்லுவார். ஏன்னு அப்புறம் வெளியில் வந்து கேட்டேன். அப்போ சொன்னார், அப்போ பாடியது அந்த பசந்துங்கிற ராகம், அதை பாடினா அந்த மஞ்சள் நிறம் தெரியும் அப்படின்னு சொல்லி எங்கள் தகப்பனார் சொன்னார். அதே மாதிரி இன்றைக்கி பாலாவை பற்றி இவங்க பேசும்பொழுது பாலாவே இங்கே இருக்கிற மாதிரியான உணர்வோடு இன்றைக்கு நாங்கள்லாம் அந்த மகிழ்வோடு போகிறோம். இதற்கு காரணமான பிரியமதா அண்டு நந்தினி 2 பேரையும் நான் கௌரவிக்க விரும்புகிறேன். இன்னும் ஒரு சிறிய வேண்டுகோள், இந்த 100ஆண்டு விழாவினுடைய ஒரு நிறைவாக நெக்ஸ்ட் இயர் நாட்டியாஞ்சலியை கூட ஹோமேஜ் டு பாலாவாக நாங்கள் நடத்துறதுக்கு நீங்கள் துணை இருக்கணும். எல்லா ஏற்பாட்டையும் எல்லா செலவையும் நாங்கள் பார்த்துக்குறோம். நீங்கள் பிளான் பண்ணி அதை செஞ்சு கொடுத்து சிதம்பரத்தில் அந்த ஆடல் வல்ல பெருமானுடைய சன்னதியில் இந்த விழா நிறைவு பெறணும்னு கேட்டுக்கிட்டு நான் ஒரு சால்வை தான் கொண்டு வந்தேன். 2 பேருக்கு சேர்த்து போத்திடுறேன். பிரேமதான் இருப்பாங்கன்னு எதிர்பார்க்கலை. அதனால் எங்களுடைய மகிழ்ச்சியையும் நன்றியையும் இப்பொழுது தெரிவித்துக் கொள்கிறேன்.
நான் சம்பந்தம் சார் சம்மதமாக எனக்கு கொடுத்த நந்தினி அக்காவுக்கு என்ன சொல்லணுன்னா, அக்கா நீங்கள் வந்து உங்கள் அப்பா வந்து பாலசரஸ்வதி அம்மா பற்றி பேசியிருக்காங்க, ஆனால் எனக்கு பாலசரஸ்வதி அம்மா யார் தெரிவிக்கப்பட்டிருக்கிறது இது சாரி எனக்கு தமிழ் அவ்வளோ சரியாக தெரியாது, ஆனால் ரொம்ப ரொம்ப பிடிக்கும். Thank you so much அக்கா for giving me this opportunity to dance with. எனக்கு சேத்தனா கிஃப்டாக கொடுத்துருக்காங்க. சொன்னாங்க முத்ரா ஃபெஸ்டிவலில் 20 வருஷம் ஹரி இவளை தான் உன்னை கட்டிக்கணும், ஏன்னா உனக்கு வந்து உண்மை வேறு யாரும் பணக்காரி கிடைக்கும், ஆனால் உனக்கு வந்து சேத்தனா வந்து ஆசீர்வாதமாக கடவுள் கொடுத்துருக்காங்க. நான் சரஸ்வதி பாலசரஸ்வதியாக சொல்கிறேன், நீ கட்டிக்கோன்னு சொன்னாங்க. நீனா ப்ரோக்ராமில் இருக்கா இல்லையாக்கா? ஆனால் அந்த மாதிரி ப்ரோக்ராமுக்கு நான் எனக்கு என்ன தெரியும்னு தெரியாது, ஆனால் நீங்கள் வந்து என்ன ப்ரோக்ராம் வச்சு நானும் சேத்தனா நல்லா வாழட்டும், எங்களுக்கு குழந்தையெல்லாம் இந்த டான்ஸை நம்பி வாழ்க்கை சேர்ந்துட்டுருக்கோம். ஸோ ஷீ செட் சம்பந்தம் சார் give the performance to him. I tell you, but today I will tell you that Akka, whatever we are today, we are because of the great gurus of our country, and I don't know how to say, from all the people from my younger generation, I'm 41 but I'm not young anymore, but everybody say I'm still young. I'm not doing this for Facebook or anybody. This is for my, I don't know how to cry, but I am going to cry. thank you so much, Akka. And I am going to create a dance village, and you will be, Saraswati Amma will be there in my archives, and we're going to make a beautiful statue for you all. And Sambandam sir, நீங்க தான் போடணும். எனக்கு தகுதியே இல்லை சார். அவங்களுக்கு கால் கிட்ட தான் இருக்கிறோம். ரெண்டு பேரும்
We all will do it.
Please clap, stand in.
அந்த பக்கம் go that side.
They actually deserve a standing ovation. Thank you so much. பேச தெரியாது, but பேசிட்டு மன்னிச்சிடுங்க.